Gonna go ahead. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. We're gonna go ahead and get started on our Parks, Recreation and Refuse Committee meeting this morning at the Wednesday, May 24th. I guess let's go ahead and do a roll call, please.
Pardonish,
Here.
Gas,
Here.
and Pearson. Sure.
So we have a long meeting, agenda items on here, so let's go and get started. Our first item is appointment of committee chair and vice chair for 23.
Yeah, this is a rather straightforward item. Each year, the committee selects amongst the elected board members to serve as a chairperson and vice chairperson. Even though this year we now have community members serving on the committee, your bylaws are clear that only the elected board members can serve as chair and vice chair. So amongst the three of you to select one of the two of you to serve as chair and vice chair.
Okay, thank you. You guys have any thoughts? I just want to do it.
Can Rochambeau for it.
We get
Well, I'm rather new. Do you want to step into the?
I'll do this year.
Can do such.
Okay, okay.
Are you
all right.
okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, so I guess she needs to make it.
No, this, I mean, by consensus, the Fardonish is the chairperson, and Pearson's the vice chairperson.
All right, so sounds good. Thank you, appreciate it. All right, our second item is the IWMA update. Is it?
Yeah, I can provide that update. Yeah, we didn't ask IWA to attend. Just wanted to simply provide just an update back to the committee. This committee's reviewed last year some items related to IWMA, and then there's been kind of a lot of activity with IWMA in the prior couple of years that had the board's interest. Couple of new developments in IWMA that I think are worth just mentioning. First, you may recall that a couple of years ago, or actually, it was last spring, it was proposed that the IWMA hauler fee, that's the rate, that's the way that IWMA is funded now, go from essentially 2%, although some accounts were actually less, to 5.4%. And that started last July. That was a pretty significant increase that was really related to the IWMA's estimated cost of implementing SB 1383, as well as the county's withdrawal from IWMA, sort of a double impact. So that is now in effect. The proposed budget for IWMA recommends to lower that to 4.2%. If that is approved as stands, there'll be a slight reduction, a little over 1% to all of our customers. So I mean, that's good news. Additionally, and equally significantly, the county, that was kind of a high profile issue with the county withdrawal from IWMA that took a while to sort of settle out and resulted in a whole new JPA agreement that all the remaining parties agreed to. The county is now requesting to rejoin IWMA. My understanding is that process is some negotiations on how that's going to look is occurring kind of behind the scenes right now with the IWMA board willing to take the county back. That should also result under certain conditions. We don't know what that's all going to look like yet. This is not going to roll out quickly. A new JPA agreement will need to be drafted. All the members of IWMA are going to need to approve it in order to put it in place. So it'll be months or longer to accomplish. But from a cost standpoint, that does allow IWMA to share the cost a little further and could result theoretically in a lower hauler fee, as that was one of the reasons the hauler fee went up to begin with, was the withdrawal from the county. So that's kind of the latest on that. We do have a county, Maladin's here from the county if you want to address the IWMA, rejoining the IWMA issue, but I don't know if I captured.
Oh, sure. Yes, I'm Lon Bando, County Public Works. Yeah, as the general manager pointed out, we are in just right now in the beginning parts of talking with IWMA on that. So that's not done yet. But once there's a resolution on that, then yeah, it'll be a few months at least to start the process of rejoining.
And then once that's done, is there going to be two board of supervisors on that, like, was it previously too, right?
Previously, there's actually all five.
All five, okay.
Yeah, I think that's one of the issues to be resolved is the voting makeup. I did talk to, when the county, this is now maybe 2 months ago or so, when the county board of supervisors took action to indicate their interest in rejoining. I did talk to the IWMA executive director and mentioned that, you know, it's an issue that our board was paying attention to, the voting makeup, and we didn't want to see special district voting representation eroded further. I'm not sure the prior makeup of the IWMA board was appropriate to have, you know, one city rep from each city in all 5 county board of supervisors, but I don't know, you know, I don't know what the final outcome is gonna be, although I think there'll be some effort to not have the same makeup as previously. I think there's an opening, a very small one, to get again, to correct the special district representation, and I made a point to Peter Cron that, like, look, there's still an opportunity here to fix this with this new JPA agreement. I don't know if the cities are gonna be any more receptive, you know, they're the ones, one city in particular was the one that kind of prevented that from taking place a year and a half ago or so, or a little over a year ago. So, you know, we'll see how it all shakes out. But I think in both cases, the developments that have been there are positive, with the county rejoining and the reduction of the hauler fee.
If the county does successfully rejoin and the fees can be reduced, would that be waiting for a year or could that be done mid-year?
You know, I don't know how fast the count, I don't know how fast the IWMA would be able to incorporate that. I don't expect it, I wouldn't expect it would have an immediate impact. It might take longer.
Is that all?
That's it.
Any questions? Okay, well, both general manager and I were at the IWMA meeting last week, and I actually wanted to thank everyone that participated. It was very informative. I mean, just to see the whole process and, you know, in terms of county and, you know, you talked about the Los Osos landfill and what's going on with that and all the processes that are going on with recycling. So it was very impressive, and I appreciate everyone doing, you know, doing that. So thank you, you guys. Okay, so that item, any further comments on that item? Everyone's good? Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and move to the third agenda item is the mid-state update.
Okay, well, actually, in the last week or so, there's been a number of developments regarding mid-state that have probably made this a much more significant discussion. Originally, I asked mid-state to attend to kind of talk about 1383 implementation, but I think I'd rather start with some recent announcements, and that is, and the board members are aware that the owner of mid-state, Brad Goodrose, who's here today, has reached agreement to sell the company. The sale of the company and how that affects Templeton CSD is that our franchise agreement is with Midstate, and there are assignment provisions to allow the sale of the company in the agreement, although the assignment provisions are fairly detailed, require some due diligence on our part. What makes this a little more complicated is, in addition to Midstate holding a franchise agreement to provide services to Templeton CSD, they also hold a franchise agreement to provide services outside of Templeton CSD with the county. And we've reviewed both the assignment provisions in our agreement as well as the assignment provisions in the county's agreement with Midstate, and they're actually pretty similar. There are some differences, some unique differences, but for the most part, they require similar kinds of review. So we believe, after our legal counsels reviewed this, that ultimately the approval of the assignment for Templeton CSD will need to come from the Templeton Community Services District Board of Directors. So the board would take formal action to approve or deny the assignment after a review of the provisions that are contained in the existing agreement. Similarly, the Board of Supervisors would be expected to take a similar kind of action. It's my understanding that based on this, and I haven't reviewed the sales agreement, I don't know the particulars, but it's my understanding that the Midstate's sale of the company is contingent on both the district approving the assignment and the county approving the assignment, so that a new hauler can take over these franchises. So because of that, we've had a preliminary discussion with county staff about trying to share our resources or do some combined effort to do the due diligence. So that we're reviewing the same information, and it would be hopefully a little easier for Midstate to accomplish meeting those assignment provisions as well. Just, share the communication, share the information. So I don't know how it's all going to shake out yet. I think there's a reason to believe that would work out to everyone's benefit. Could be a little more streamlined and more efficient. So that's what's come up. I don't have a timeline for the committee or for the board of directors just yet. We do have representation here today from Midstate Solid Waste, and they'd probably be happy to address this, and also from Waste Management, who is the owner of the company that's interested in purchasing Midstate. But all here today, it might make some sense just to get to know these folks and hear their perspective a little bit. I would note, and I think that it is an issue that we're going to want to make sure that we're all aware of, that a similar prior to Midstate, prior to Brad Goodrow buying what is now Templeton's franchise, a similar proposal existed about 25 years ago, before the district had solid waste authority. At that time, a subsidiary of Waste Management sought to purchase that franchise, and the county denied the assignment provision at that time. So I just want to note that, because we want to make sure that whatever existed back in the late 90s no longer exists today, or at least the board of directors is aware of whatever that was. And again, it wasn't a TCSD decision, but a county decision to deny that purchase.
The grounds were for the dinner.
I have some documents on it, but I haven't fully reviewed it. So again, I have got some documents from the late 90s from the county, again, not knowing I couldn't speak to it fully just yet. But we want to address that and make sure that everyone's aware that we've overcome that, or whatever the issues were or are. So all that is to say, this is probably not going to happen super quick, given the fact that the county is also going to have to perform their due diligence, and their process is a little bit more structured in terms of getting items before the board of directors. As of now, my conversations with them a lot, and can we maybe share or have just, if the county's going to engage a consultant to help with this review, can we share that information so that we're not asking Midstate to pay for multiple reviews or something of that nature. So that's kind of where we stand right now. If you have any questions of me, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'd recommend that the committee ask or take comments from Midstate and from Waste Management. And it might be nice, just since we've got new folks here today, just so you know who they are, because I think we're going to be working with them over the next few months as we go through this process. And then, if the board approves it, we'll be working with Waste Management moving forward.
Any questions for general manager?
Well, just procedurally, so does it have to go through committee first and then our recommendation goes to the board, or how does that work?
It wouldn't necessarily need to do that. This is the first time that TCSD has had to consider such an assignment. If the committee would like a role in vetting that process, or if during our vetting, the staff believes that would be beneficial to bring a preliminary update to the committee, we could certainly do so, or would do so under that circumstance. But there's not a requirement that the committee make a recommendation to the board. It could go directly to the board.
The board has the authority, so it seems like it should just go to them.
Just for the initial review and kind of to do the groundwork, and then the final decision gets left to the board, but it's always nice to have a committee do a more detailed and thorough.
Yeah, and the committee could certainly review the information and then make a recommendation as well. I think as long as we're moving forward at a pace that doesn't slow down the sale, in other words, ahead of the county, that's the county's decision, or at least we don't wait for the county to make a decision, we won't be holding up the transaction.
Thank you. Okay, and then so I know we got Don and Brad, and then if you guys don't mind introducing yourself and just letting us know exactly what your thoughts are, how you see this process moving forward. I would appreciate it.
We'll do introductions. You know Brad Goodrow, of
Yes.
course, you know myself, Randy, our general manager. I'm sure most of you know through interaction. We'll go through the process of having WM introduce themselves. Stacy?
Hi, I'm Stacy Walters. Forgive me, public speaking is not one of my areas of expertise, but kind of like Brad, we have a similar history. I've grown up in this business and I'm looking forward to having oversight of Mid-States refuse program that they got going. Randy's going to retain services.
Okay.
Our plan is to bring in all the employees by bringing everything over. So we're really looking forward to the opportunity to service your community.
Okay, yeah, we're used to a great service from solid, Mid-State Solid Waste. So I mean, our residents really, overall, really appreciate what they've done for us. And it's a big shocker that this is happening, but we really appreciate it. And we just want to, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure other board members, we want to make sure that we continue a great service for our residents at,
Absolutely.
I-
That's what I live for. My grandparents owned a small company and through acquisitions, I became part of Waste Management. Told my grandfather I didn't want to do this my whole life and well, here I am 37 years later. But absolutely, customer service, we're all about it.
Appreciate that.
My counterpart here, Josh, man, he's more the public speaker than I am, so I'll let him speak.
Josh Mann, I'm a territory manager with WM, covering this area through the transition. This is something I've done previously, and so I've experienced working with CSDs in particular in terms of going through this transition. A little bit about myself. I've been with the company about 9 years. All of those in public sector, all of those working with counties and cities and special districts, specifically in franchise service program development, certainly working through the changes that we've all seen, mandatory commercial recycling, AB 341, mandatory commercial organics recycling, AB 1826, and now we have this new law that's come about, SB 1383. And I was heartened to see that the district has already taken the proactive steps in terms of doing an amendment this past year. So saves us one hurdle to get over in terms of the assignment process. Again, I'm in the process of reviewing the initial agreement that was signed in 2012, as well as the amendment. I'm working with my team. I'll be working to facilitate the information needs the district may have in terms of the vetting process. I think that it's good to see the interest in properly vetting a service provider. I know from our standpoint that we wouldn't be interested in this acquisition, but for the fact that Brad and his team have done such a great job in terms of developing great relationships with Templeton CSD in particular. And we want to continue to carry on that legacy of a high quality of service. And as Stacy noted, that there is no interest in changing anything in the short term. We really want to get to know the district and certainly carry on the great services that are provided. And then where WM can be of assistance, I think in particular, WM is a leader in technology that enhances customer service, enhances the quality of service that's provided. But that's where we would work with certainly this committee and district staff to move that forward. But in the interim, so glad to be here. Appreciate the invitation and look forward to working with you all to get through this process.
Any questions? So you mentioned technology. I was actually interested in that, especially from last week's meeting at IWMA. I've seen that technology has come a long ways in for waste management. So what are some of the things that you guys are going to be able to incorporate that we currently don't have with Mid-State Solid Waste?
That is a great question, and there's a lot to that. I think that probably start off with our approach to safety and service, and we know that obviously Brad and his team have operated in a manner that is very safe and servicing the customers here in Templeton CSD. I think what we bring to the table is the application of technology and vetting how we build routes in terms of we're minimizing vehicle miles traveled, also avoiding potential traffic issues, ensuring that ultimately the data bears out that we're operating in a safe manner. It also extends the technology that exists on the truck. So our trucks use the most advanced safety systems. So they're equipped with cameras and sensors. Effectively, we want to know, from a standpoint of at any point that truck is out on route operating, what's going on, and that in the case that something does come up, because we're humans driving streets with other humans and cars and vehicles and pedestrians, that we have the ability to capture that data and be able to review it and ensure that whatever situation may have come up, that we are operating as safely as we can, or instituting potentially modifications to the routing that would continue to improve that safety process. Talking about SB 1383, one of the components in there is route reviews. Right now, for most haulers in the business, it's a very manual process of actually having to send a person out to tip a lid. That in itself poses a bit of a safety issue in the fact that you have somebody basically walking streets, going through someone's container. And from that standpoint, probably where we would want to bring in is our smart truck system. Effectively, we would do the same process in terms of evaluating what is being placed into containers, using a proprietary system that involves the on-truck cameras with GPS in connection with our customer service database. And the fact that ultimately, if contamination is observed, we'll be able to capture that with imagery, and we'll be actually able to push out the notification to the customer that something was observed digitally, so they could receive it via text message or email. And ultimately, that's helps to expedite the process of the notification, which hopefully reduces contamination at its earliest possible chance.
So you are gonna be switching out the trucks then, so you're gonna put the smart trucks.
As I alluded to, nothing in the short term is going to change, but yes, as we move forward, that we would definitely be looking to enhance, especially on the technology side with WM's proprietary systems. So whether those are new trucks or modifications to the existing fleet, that we'll definitely be looking.
And then, are you using the Chicago landfill?
Correct. So right now, Chicago grade is our primary disposal site. That being said, is that, that if potentially there is a opportunity to benefit the CSD by using WM's large network of processing centers and disposal sites, that we would certainly bring that up if we thought that was going to be a beneficial opportunity. And again, that we would work in partnership with district staff and the board to make sure that ultimately, if it was in the best interest, we would move forward with that. Otherwise, that we were going to continue status quo.
And then, what are the rates? Are the rates going to be changing for our residents?
No, there will be no initial changes to rates. In fact, I'm just reviewing in terms of where rates stand today. We're obviously going to be doing our vetting in terms of optimization opportunities on the cost side. Again, to make sure that ultimately we're delivering the best service at the lowest possible cost to residents and businesses in the district. That being said, is that at this time, there will be no rate adjustments associated with this.
Just to clarify, the agreement is clear that the assignment does not trigger a rate opportunity in and of itself.
All right.
A rate. Now, there are other provisions in the agreement that would permit a rate review, but the assignment's provision is not one.
Okay. Because the reason I was asking is, obviously, waste with waste management, you guys have other, territories that you take care of, and I just wanted to see how the fees that you charge other residents are going to compare to what, you're going to charge Templeton residents.
Yeah, typically we don't encourage rate comparisons because every franchise is unique in terms of the provisions that are in there, whatever benefits may be provided to the district directly at no charge, or potentially in a fee structure, that sort of thing. So it makes rate comparisons between say the the district and the county, or the district and another city that we may service. That makes that really a tough situation to really try and get to apples and apples, just based on the customer base may be unique, the amenities may be unique. And from that standpoint, again, you know, we would be working with the district to make sure that ultimately that the rates were reflective of the cost to service the district at the scope of service that's outlined in the agreement.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Looking forward to working with you guys and try to get, to navigate this, through this. So appreciate that. Anyone else wants to comment? Everybody else good?
Just wanna, I've been sort of loosely involved in solid waste for about 27 years and I'll personally commit to doing whatever is best for Templeton, obviously, and honoring the franchise agreement, its assignment provisions. It's been a real pleasure working with Brad. I get so few customer service concerns or complaints. I mean, they're remarkably good.
Yes.
And it's so for me personally, it's sad to see this time come. And I'll do my best to hold Waste Management to the same expectation as we've had from Midstate. They've been remarkable.
Oh, yeah, no, they've been great. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's like, just a phone call away. Every time I make a phone call, it's like, there's service right there. So I really appreciate the staff that's there and great leadership that you guys have offered. And we really have, I think we've been spoiled. So I just hope again that will continue. So because our residents have high expectations, so we really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you very much. And one thing I wanted to interject, Waste Management is also purchasing our infrastructure. And that's important. It's always been really important to me to build the infrastructure that we needed right here in town. Keep the rates as low as possible. And them purchasing the infrastructure, they'll have the capability to do the same thing. There were other haulers that are companies that looked at our facility, but they were gonna play games with the infrastructure that was not gonna be conducive to low rates for Templeton.
Oh, okay.
So we didn't even entertain
Oh, wow.
their thoughts, to tell you the truth. And I'm gonna in the middle of this, what we're doing is we're doing a long contract to keep composting for Waste Management and the city and in Templeton out at the ranch. So I'm more or less pulling my horns in so that I can do the composting as well as I can.
Okay.
And it's just to the point now where with all these new regs and all this stuff, it's just getting overburdensome.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And if I can't do what I'm doing correctly, I need to tune it back to do what I'm doing correctly.
Yeah.
And Waste Management has the capabilities to do the other part correctly. And that's what I'm doing. In fact, we're pouring concrete right now at the composting site. But my goal is to have a good relationship with Waste Management to get the rates as low as possible for the compost side of it, which is a large part of 1383.
It is. Yes.
And we're going to be very competitive, with compost and all of that. It's all a big part of 1383. In that, if I can do that, get it done right, we can keep our costs down.
Oh, wow. Great. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
I'm not going away. I'm just kind of getting stuck in a corner.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you looking out for Templeton. You always have been on your continue. So we appreciate that.
It's been mutual. Every time we've ever needed anything, you've been there for us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. And then Ron, are you staying or what, so you're gonna be the composting side as well?
Sure, some combination of that too. Not 100% sure how it all gonna end up, but not going anywhere soon.
Oh,
I'll
okay,
be a Temple resident till they decide to put me somewhere different and
okay.
it'll be underground, so.
Well,
Not going anywhere.
you've been doing a great job as
Thanks.
well the last few years. I mean, with all of that, you
Sure.
bring us information. It's been getting us through this 1383. It's been, you know, we value your
Brad said
service.
you've all been a pleasure to work with, and I know the transition. The WM folks have a long history with the Atascadero contract. They have a good record in the county performance and of course nationally as big as they are. So I think the resources that Brad has built in the vertically integrated company are going to do nothing more but better and better services for local communities such as Templeton. So we're very excited about the opportunity and certainly look forward to the process again.
Thank you, you guys, appreciate it.
One important thing you may want to do is just pick up the phone and call Mayor Moreno. And ask her how she managed. They've been there for
20 years.
25 years, I think. or
Oh, yeah.
something.
That's,
So,
that's a great idea. Thank you. I'm sure we'll do that. Great. Any other questions, comments?
I'm just curious, in terms of truck routing, do you follow the UPS model of right turns as wherever possible?
Yeah, so we actually use a proprietary software suite that will map things out to, again, minimize vehicle miles traveled, which is less impact on Templeton's roads. But also looking out for those safety issues and certainly making a right is safer than making a left.
Okay, anything else, John Manager?
No, nothing,
Okay.
nothing else, on this item.
Okay, and we all said as far as waste management. Okay, all right, okay, then, so good, we'll go ahead, so we are done, and then, I think you guys.
And all the rest of the items are parks.
Yeah,
Parks related, something to stay.
If you like.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let us know, as always.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you. Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Randy. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Thanks again for coming. Thanks, Steve.
All right.
Thank you. Good to meet you, Justin.
Nice.
Hey, nice to.
I'm going outside with you.
Be in touch.
Ron,
Yes. That's me, man.
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. We'll see you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
No, thank you, thank you.
Thanks again, buddy.
One way.
I'm not a stranger. Have a good one, buddy.
I keep it going, maybe increase.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Very nice.
All right.
I did. Come on up, buddy.
All
right, next item, trees at Everest Park. That's Melissa, right?
Yeah, well, it's a combination of all of us. So we've got, actually.
Not those.
Just start with mine, as I sent them out originally, the first link. Or just the link on the thing. Right there. So, just by way of a little bit of background, when we were working, I guess it's easier for me to describe things in kind of in order that they happen. So a couple of months ago, we realized that we're working through the Everest Park Improvement Plan, that the property lines on Everest Park don't look like the park footprint. There's two parcels out there, and actually then there's the property owner who owns the mini storage that's right adjacent to the entry to Everest Park. That property actually goes over the front of the driveway, and there's an easement, a road easement, where the driveway exists. The county has a regulation that doesn't allow grading within 2 feet of a property line. And so it quickly became an issue is, well, there's a property line right in the middle of existing grading, and obviously we're trying to build this ADA walkway, which is incredibly sensitive. It has, there's just no room for any changes to the to meet ADA requirements. We have a steep slope that we're trying to incorporate. And so, we got information from the county that said if the neighboring property owner, provides a written, acceptance to grade over the property line or within 2 feet, and of course, there's existing grading there already, they would consider it. So we reached out to the property owner, the neighboring property owner, and he was actually very cooperative and provided the written permission to grade over the property line. But at that time, he said, you know, these eucalyptus trees that are in the park, and get some of these pictures, are messy on the mini storage and cause some problems with the roof of the mini storage. And thumb through some of these. Sure, I can. Yeah, let me just, I just took these pictures last week, so they're
You just scroll down.
right here. Okay, so this is the mini storage. It's built up against the property line's very close to the back of this wall. This is not a fence, this is the back of a building. These trees that exist here, these are the ones he was kind of complaining about, that the eucalyptus trees are kind of known to be messy, right? They shed this large bark and a lot of leaves. So here's another photograph of, again, the property line and some of the trees. Here's the back of this building, and you can see the trees are overhanging it a little bit. This is actually.
Go up. A little bit more. And then is there power lines there? Did I
Go
see?
down.
Yeah. No, that's not.
That's
Okay,
part
that's.
I don't think it's part,
part
yeah,
line,
yeah, that's fine. In any case, so this is looking towards the north along this property line. The trees aren't overhanging terribly, but what he mentioned was some years ago, the district agreed to cut them back to reduce that. Of course, eucalyptus trees couldn't grow like weeds, and so they since grown so here's a view kind of looking over the top of the mini storage and the trees that go alongside it. It's this is from our driveway entrance. You got all these pictures and another picture from further away. Which one?
It's that one.
This one here?
Yeah.
Maybe this one. Okay, so actually, so when that happened, I asked Justin, I said, hey, what can we do with these trees? You know, I want to be a good neighbor. And Justin has a distant but important background in tree trimming. And we have another employee that has experience. I'm not gonna forget that. He was proud of it when he was interviewing here. We have another employee who's got some tree trimming background, but none of us are in the tree trimming. We're not in the tree trimming business. You know, we don't have specialized equipment. So I suggest, what can we do about these trees? Because is there something that we can handle, we can do? I want to be a good neighbor. And I'll turn it over. That's sort of, so this is maybe 6 weeks ago or a month ago or something like that. So Justin, what have you learned about the tree? Where are we at with the trees, and what are our options?
Yeah, so after our discussions, we went out, staff went out to the site and took inventory of those trees. Some of them are larger in size than you would think, just from your own memory, going out there and just really taking account of what's along that bank. Some of those trees are multi-trunk, large, over 100 foot in height, and eucalyptus are large, fast growing, kind of self pruning, lots of debris throughout the year. And so we right away, we saw that this is a project that's outside of our capabilities. And so we received some initial costs. It's broken up by these costs were broken up by dealing with the trees right behind the storage facility. And then just to the north, there's a trailer sales, I believe.
Yeah, storage.
And so option A is the eucalyptus that's right behind, and there's some privet mixed in there as well, but the trees anyways, trees right behind the storage facility. Option B was taking account of just getting in there, doing some work with the whole windbreak, if there were just to give you more options. The windbreak of eucalyptus along that fence line. So the costs, so the initial cost we received for option A was approximately $10,000 to do a 50% reduction with those trees. So it's a pretty severe pruning job on those trees. Leaving the chips over to the south to an adjacent kind of a lot there to be used in the future, leaving some larger wood on site. To remove all of those trees, in option A, to remove those trees completely, again, leaving the chips adjacent side and leaving some wood there. That was gonna total just approximately $14,000. And so then including option B, a 50% reduction pruning, leaving the chips, we were looking at approximately $13,000 to do the whole windbreak at a 50% pruning. And to remove the entire windbreak, we're looking at $32,000.
So I thought it was important to bring this item to the committee for a couple reasons. One, when we started the budget development process, this wasn't in our radar, so we don't have this in the workup for next year's budget. Not to say that it can't be incorporated or can't come in for the fact, but we weren't contemplating it. And then two, I wanted to talk about what is the value of these trees, and my suspicion is, and because I don't really know, we don't have firsthand knowledge, but my suspicion is the trees were planted because they're fast growing and they could provide some quick shade to the third base line of that softball field. Is because eucalyptus trees are fast growing, and this sits on, in the late afternoon when a lot of practices take place. They shade the third base line where parents would sit and watch. So that's probably why they were planted. They're not generally good urban trees. Eucalyptus are just too messy. And they're great trees when you have 50 acres of a field and you want to put a nice tree line along the property line, or a windbreak or a shade break or whatever. They're fine out in the country because their mess doesn't contribute to a significant problem. But here they are messy. So one of the things I was wanted to kind of discuss with the committee is which of these trees do we want to maintain? Because or keep on the site, because it may not make sense to spend a lot of money pruning trees every 5 or 10 years if they're not adding a lot of value. Because tree maintenance is very expensive, and we're not particularly equipped to handle large tree projects within the district. We just, we have some limited equipment that would facilitate tree pruning, but we don't have, a lot of experienced folks, and we don't have a lot of equipment, and we don't have a big crew we can devote to that project and liability on it. So
I think eucalyptus trees also keep mosquitoes and other bugs away. It serves as a repellent.
okay, eucalyptus.
We've got a little,
It uses the bug repellent.
I got some insight on the benefit of the trees and the frustration as a parent and a coach. If you guys have a few minutes, hot days, I'm coaching the all-star team right now in softball. So last week we had a couple of hot days, and we usually warm up down first base side, but the girls all move to third base to be in the shade on hot days. So they do appreciate the shade. As a coach and as a board member of the softball board, when we have to get there to get these fields ready, the leaves are a nightmare, a disaster. I mean, it's that deep of leaves across the field come January, February, when we're out there trying to clean up, and behind off the field for the parents to sit. The whole stairs area coming down into the park is just a wreck with leaves. It's a foot deep of leaves. So the benefit, the girls can deal with the sun. It's not that big of a benefit to have those trees there for the shade for the
negative that we have to do as a board, as a group for the softball to get the fields ready. And then also your maintenance staff that handles the stairs area and the parking lot that's right there, that's just littered with material. I think you could really save a lot of manpower hours in the parking lot area and just the brushes, the shrubs and all of that, cleaning that area up. And then also the amount of youth kids that, little kids are there with their bigger sisters, they're running around with 7-foot sticks, hitting sticks with each other. Another possible safety issue that just Melissa likes to yell at the kids when they start hanging on the playground, so. We do as well, as much as possible, but there's, 12, 13-year-old girls playing and their 6, 7-year-old little brothers are out there up on that hillside whacking each other with sticks. So that's some public input if you'd like.
Yeah, I think my take on it is, it was probably a short-sighted decision to plant eucalyptus trees there. There would have been other species that would have done better in the long term.
Yeah.
I guess my first, so my first ask is, okay, what do we really want to see here in the long term? And, if retaining some of these trees is important, let's figure out where we want to keep, which ones we want to keep. And are we better off biting the bullet and removing some or many of the trees rather than trimming them, just from the perspective of cost in the long term? We're going to own, hopefully we're going to own this facility for 50, 100, 200, for hundreds, for in perpetuity going forward. And, I hate to see us spend $10,000 or $20,000 every so often to trim trees if they're not really valuable.
Yeah, and they're gonna just grow again, and they're gonna, if we don't do anything, they're just gonna continue.
Did you get a quote to remove option A there, but just trim option B? You have a
Yes.
quote for that? What's that?
Just trimming option B was almost $13,000.
And then removal of the others, 14,000, so that'd be 27,000 to do.
A removal and then a trim, yeah.
So our initial take on this was that when you look at those two boxes, that the trees under A were providing some shade benefits, the trees under B, probably minimal shade benefits. They're further away from the field and nobody's sitting in the outfield for softball, and soccer isn't, it's less of a concern. Melissa, what's your take?
Yeah, well, the sun sets behind the box on A, right? So no matter where you're at on that field, the sun doesn't set behind the trees on option B. So it doesn't provide, like, the trees on option B don't provide the same kind of, shade that the trees on A provide, even in the summer when the set's further north. So
They would provide shade where the playground is gonna be,
where the playground will be, yeah.
but it's also gonna provide a big mess.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of beautification time spent.
Yeah, so again, I think it goes back to eucalyptus trees are just really messy trees. Not a great urban park tree. Great for trails and open space, things like that. Not great for a urban park where we want to have these kinds of activities.
From a coach's standpoint, A was removed and B was trimmed. Does that solve the cleanup problems? for you?
Absolutely.
And it would be nice to keep some, just to keep some of the mosquitoes and stuff.
Yeah, and if they were
at bay
just
during
trimmed
the
back
summer.
down and maybe once trimmed,
It's
if
not
the
just
maintenance
shade.
staff can address them with a pole saw a little bit more frequently, but again, then you got more man hours, so it's that toss up. Some shade, it would be great for the fans and the players there, but people can bring umbrellas and pop-ups.
When it's soccer and softball, and I mean, it's used, it's not just.
So
focused on
soccer
softball, but
doesn't really benefit anything. Because it's farther
It's out
out
in
in
the
the
field.
grass, so it doesn't really get much shade. I mean, maybe an eighth of a soccer field gets some. A little bit for the fans, but they're not really sitting down there. They're more in the middle of the park. is
do they
where
help catch
fans
the
sit.
breeze or anything to try to keep the area cool, or?
I haven't seen it.
I guess my question would be, what is kind of the long-term alternative if we're going to yank these trees and essentially reduce what minimal shade that we have out there? I know there's a bigger project in plan, but what is the intention to kind of replace what we're taking away?
Yeah, there isn't one. So the projects, even the work that Brightview did a couple years ago and the current work that we're having done through MIG to do the initial phase of the improvement project didn't address a tree removal or tree replacement. This is, I think, more of a recent, in terms of, it's before you today because of a complaint.
Right.
But as we started digging into it, we started thinking, well, what works better long term? You know, I guess I didn't want to see us go spend $10,000 or $15,000 trimming if we ultimately wanted them removed anyway, or remove many of them anyway. So the request from the property owner against them with mini storage was not to remove them, although I don't think he would, you know, have any opposition to that, because obviously doesn't like the mess that they cause, and there's a minimal value in shading a mini storage building. There's you know, for us, it is true, it's a messy area. And we have plans, the plans call for improvements along that third base line that you see there. That's where a walkway would be built. So anything that we can do to reduce the droppings, leaves, branches, bark is gonna keep that walkway more accessible and reduce maintenance costs on the walkway. But none of the plans addressed, and this wasn't an issue that we discussed when we talked about what do we want to see with the park. There was not a vision for removing or replacing the trees at the time.
Also, is it possible that the roots of those trees could damage the future walkway?
I think they're high enough.
They're pretty far. This picture's a little bit, it's a decent distance away.
Okay, so the future walkways, okay.
Yeah, the walkway is actually fairly, at this location, because there's like a drainage swale that runs there. The location behind this third base line, the walkway's actually pretty close to the field. It's not up on that hill.
We could always, I guess, plant other trees that.
Yeah, sure.
don't-
You could replace them.
Yeah, replace them with trees that don't grow as tall and are not,
Yeah.
don't make as much mess.
Pecos though actually just reached out about asking if we, like literally the other day, if we wanted some trees. So, because they're working toward a grant for getting a variety of
Preferably
trees that might
western
be
bud
available to
repellent,
us.
because mosquitoes do get pretty gnarly out there in the summer. We do
Yeah.
summer camps out there.
Absolutely.
That would be an important feature to.
Yeah, and there's not there isn't a need to eliminate these trees. It was just more of an issue of like, what
Well, it
trees?
sounds like
what
option
trees
A is
are
a
required.
problematic. Right, option A is the most problematic, those trees.
Yeah,
Another photo too, but
yeah, I don't know if it's working better.
And
This one here?
I would,
are the tree trimming or addressing that,
Uh,
is that contingent with the easement and the expansion?
No,
of-
no, the easement, the issue with the property owner has been provided. This was just a request that came simultaneously. It's not
Gotcha.
not a contingency.
Okay.
I'm not sure how this, so these are the larger trees, taller trees are over here. And actually, none of the pictures that we provided you are really kind of ideal. So this is the area that the neighbors complained about. It sounds like this is the area that the softball parents are most concerned about. And
And even the first ones, because stuff's falling on those trees, you're losing parking spots.
yeah, it is messy. This area is messy here.
It is.
These trees. You know,
The ones.
I think I would like to, if we were.
A replacement plan. Hate removing, the idea of removing trees without maybe replacing, because that area is so open and exposed as already.
It would absolutely change the look of the park, at least that side of it, if we remove them all. I think I'd want to spend some time looking at these trees more carefully, in relation to where the playground improvements are, because I wouldn't want to spend $25,000 in tree removal, tree trimming, and then have this messy eucalyptus tree overhanging our playground equipment. So I'm not opposed to keeping some of the trees that are less likely to affect that, but so maybe it's, and of course, we're not here to necessarily make a decision, you know, obviously any cost items are gonna have to go back before the board anyways, but if the committee's recommendation is like, let's come up with a plan to trim some, remove some, or remove many and replace some. Is that, and then have a plan of what it is, what we're gonna replace them with. And again, my concern is more about, yes, what we're gonna replace them with is gonna be slower growing, it's not gonna provide the shade immediately, but I don't want messy trees at the park. We need something that's a species that's more suitable. Matter of fact, we do have a species, a recommended plant species from from the Brightview work that was done here a couple years ago, like those
Yes,
trees that are,
yes.
trees and stuff that are suitable
Yes.
for this
Yeah, I
facility.
think we should do that, especially since we're gonna put more, some of the trees that might have the same theme type of thing. Yeah. And then I just wanna go back to the estimates. Did you only get one estimate from one company?
That's right. This is just, I mean, this is just reaching out to one entity and getting those costs. So
May I ask who that was?
Witt's turn.
Oh, okay, is it possible to get other
Oh, of
estimates?
course,
Okay,
absolutely.
this was not done
we
for
would
the
need-
purpose of doing it, but just understanding what the costs
Yeah,
are.
because I know
We would
there's
need
other lower cost company, that would, charge a lot
There's
of
several
companies.
good tree.
Yes.
It's usually pretty good.
Just keep in mind when the district doesn't have the flexibility that you as a homeowner has. We're gonna have to use a company because of the costs involved here. We're gonna have to use a company that's registered with the Department of Industrial Labor.
Oh.
It's gonna have to be done at prevailing wage. This is gonna be 50% more than what you would
I
pay
see,
for the same
oh, okay,
service.
okay.
We're
Yeah,
gonna
okay.
require $1 million liability, we're gonna, all of those kinds of things are gonna add to costs.
What is the, I guess, monetary value of the labor to maintain these over time?
These trees?
You mean like the current conditions?
Yeah, just kind of the upkeep.
Oh,
Can you give me like kind of a ballpark number of like what it would take?
What it's taking today?
Yeah,
we haven't been doing it that kind of way.
Well, in terms of pruning them or just cleaning up the mess?
the maintenance of them, I guess, would be what probably cleaning up the mess, because we don't do pruning, right? Or-
Well, we're capable of doing some pruning, but once the trees get too tall, I think that's where the problem comes about. It's, I think,
Then we would always have to
outsource.
outsource it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was looking for the word there, outsource it.
Yeah.
Moving on, but then the regular cleaning of like the field and the facilities, do we know what the kind of ballpark number for that? The man hours and,
Justin, you have any?
On a
idea?
weekly basis, staff are cleaning up leaf, debris that's in the parking lots. They do have capabilities with our equipment, power pole saws, chainsaws. We do have a lift, be able to take care of some of the coastal live oaks and center medians, sycamore. Some of the sycamores are smaller and they're planted a little bit lower in elevation. From the parking lot, you can still kind of get to them. As soon as you kind of get into those, unfortunately, as soon as you get into the windbreak, I can see why we outsourced that in the past. You can see where it was pruned heavy some years ago. I'm not sure exactly where it's regrown. And so, just when you get into a windbreak, a eucalyptus, it's a bigger job.
so it's not traditional to have eucalyptus in park areas, right?
Yeah, I don't think this is I think they've been fine for a park that had a lot of open space, trails, those kinds of things. Where the debris falls and it's not impacting the use, but they're not great urban trees. They're just eucalyptus are just known to be very messy tree.
And, I appreciate the aspect of mosquito repellent, but I guess I would wanna know a little bit more about exactly what perimeter, like how far away from the tree, it's, the mosquitoes, being repelled,
I mean, anything would be helpful,
Yeah,
but I mean,
But if
I
it's just
I
gonna be
get
like
the need to
specific-
like replace, but or to remove or to address. But I would hate to remove trees without a plan.
No, you
how
gotta
to-
replace.
yeah.
No, I would agree that
Yeah.
we would need to replace it with something else, and as we are putting more trees in. Other trees, we could use the same theme, so that way everything blends and matches well.
And there are grants available for new trees to be placed.
Yeah, EcoSlow is working to secure grants, where they provide trees to local groups and agencies. So they just reached out to ask if we would be interested in any, and if we wouldn't mind writing a letter of support for their securing the grant. So
It seems very feasible that to remove the eucalyptus trees that are the biggest problem under A. And they can trim back the B part. Replace those with something.
So maybe we could come back, so it's with a recommendation, the specific recommendation of which trees are gonna be pruned, which trees are gonna be removed, and the number and type and approximate location of the replacement trees. And then we could develop a budget estimate that would come to the board, not as a part of the budget, because this is not gonna happen that fast, and can come forward. again, I think, and we can consult with the other users of the park and the neighbor. And again, I don't want to sort of study the location of the playground because I don't really want big eucalyptus.
Yeah.
I don't want the big eucalyptus to remain near the playground.
So like no point trimming them.
Right, no point in trimming them if they're
That
gonna be
would
a problem.
Possibly part B, section B.
Yes, it's.
So what's the difference between trimming section B and cutting? It was 13,000 versus
Well, so
six.
50% reduction on option B
Uh-huh.
was approximately $13,000.
And then cutting them?
Option B
Uh-huh.
only was 18.
Okay, so it's only a $5,000.
Yeah, and I really, again, the playground's is really a little further out over here, so some of these trees, especially the ones that are closer to this power pole, this light pole, might be not problematic for the playground. But I want to make sure I'm looking at that closely, or that we're looking at that closely and could come up with something specific. We could even go so far as to go out there and put ribbons, trees that are gonna be trimmed, trees that are gonna be removed, and really get a better understanding of how many and where.
So the thing about eucalyptus is that if you leave any eucalyptus, there are other vegetations, other trees around them aren't going to grow as well.
Right.
It's because they have some kind of oil or chemical that they produce. So if you plant some trees down a little bit further down near the third baseline there, then and they may not
Do well.
thrive. Yeah. So you actually, whoever that cuts the tree, they're probably, we need to ask them what we need to do to make sure to amend the soil for the future for the trees that we plant. So but I know from personal experience, you cut down eucalyptus, that area around it's just not gonna grow well. So if you only keep one tree or two trees, that could be the problem too, so.
Well, it might affect the area around those, but let's, so does that kind of work with, that we come up with a specific plan? Where we're gonna prune, where we're gonna remove, and what we're gonna replace it with?
Yes.
And then we bring it back to a future committee meeting with just a ballpark cost estimate. For your recommendation ultimately to the board. We can stay in touch with the property or let them know that we're working on a kind of a longer term plan. We just don't wanna, like I said, I didn't wanna go spend 10 grand and then ultimately decide to cut the trees down. So we just that money.
Good, sounds good. Everything good? All right, sounds good. Awesome, thank you.
Cool deal.
All right. Everest Park improvement plans.
I don't know if you want to tackle this, Melissa, or?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So the initial response from the county, we received, I think we did an update for the committee. But when there were different members, so include, we submitted our initial plans. By we, I mean MIT and subsidiaries, they submitted our initial plans to the county for the park improvement plan, received back pretty extensive comments on from the review portion of that from the county. Had a couple meetings with MIG about how to resolve those comments. Admittedly, some of it is the county being sticklers. They're known for somewhat difficult to work with over at county planning. And some things that MIG needed to, rightfully address. There were some adjustments to ADA, for example. MIG recently reached out, I'd say within about a month, to ask about some specific section of the curb height for the plan and needed some clarification from the county because the curb height they were using was more restrictive than what the county was requiring, but it still came back in a comment that they needed to provide justification for this. So we reached out to the county. Now I'm the point of contact for the county. They'll only speak to one person regarding the plan. And unfortunately, the primary contact there had some personal, I think she was on bereavement leave, frankly. And so we had a hard time getting in touch with them. I finally received a response from them in the last week, reached out to MIG, gave them this response that yes, it's fine, you just have to justify the curb height and the methodology used and explain, what's going on and resubmit. As of yesterday, we heard back from an MIG representative that they're going to be doing this, adjusting a couple other things on their end, and by next week should have plans ready for resubmittal through the county. And then we'll see what happens.
So this has gone on a lot.
Saga continues.
When we first engaged MIG here now. Almost 2 years ago, we were hoping but not expecting that we could have construction done in the summer of 2022. But 2023 was like, that was our expectation would be done in 2023. So we have because of the way the park is used, we have to essentially close the park to most users to facilitate the construction because it affects the entryway and the playability and everything. So right now, as we sit here today, if things go really well, we will be doing this starting in May, starting a year from now. That assumes that we have plans that can be permitted. And again, just the benefit of the committee, for water and wastewater facilities, we don't need a county building permit. But for every other thing that we do, we need a county building permit. And so we're subject to the same timelines and review process that anybody else is with the county, which is it's fairly cumbersome. So we don't want to go out to bid until we're certain or nearly certain that the project as designed is permittable. Because once we award a bid and there are changes that have to be made, there'd have to be change orders that can get really expensive, and we can lose control of the budget. So once we get confirmation that the project's permittable, then we'll be prepared to go out to bid. We'd have real bids, including some bid alternates, because we know we likely can't afford everything that we have on the plans. And then it would come to the board. The board can decide whether to award the bid with alternates and how to move forward with the construction timeline. But right now, we do also have a short window over the winter time, but it's unlikely that the project could be built during that period entirely. And quite honestly, just how long things take with submittals and resubmittals. I mean, we really had like 30 pages of comments from the county. So I think it's wishful thinking that there will be 0 comments coming back with a resubmittal. It's just, there were just a lot of comments on the plans initially. So that's kind of where we stand. Still really excited about the project. Again, for just to remind you, this project would widen the entry driveway, add an ADA compliant sidewalk down from the street into the main park, add a new walkway, ADA walkway from the parking lot level to the restroom snack bar level, add a walkway potentially all the way around the park. That's a significant feature. And then add a playground at the kind of right over here on this, kind of the bottom of this hillside, this kind of area. Some really important, badly needed features for the park.
What's the current access to the second field?
Walking through the grass.
Yeah,
Or mud.
Yeah.
Or mud, or catching one of us to give you a ride on the golf cart if you have some mobility concerns.
To it, right, went through the self-storage place.
oh yeah, no, there's only one access. to the
There's
park.
only one entryway, yeah.
So yeah, it's on the second there, and there is no plan to add a second public entry to the rear part of the park. And there's actually another little triangular shaped piece in the very back behind a fence line that's also district property. But that's not, wasn't part of this initial set of improvements. So anyway, that's where we stand. It's been frustrating, but I'm hoping it'll all be very worthwhile when it finally comes to fruition.
Great. Any questions, comments? All right. Any questions, comments from public?
No, the ADA walkway is critical piece all the way down to field 2. The amount with this year's rain, and when we started games, that middle part of the field was so wet, and everything by the snack bar was so wet that grandparents couldn't get down to watch their grandkids play softball because they couldn't get there with their walkers or their scooters or things like that. So it's a critical piece, in my opinion, to this park improvement plan.
We're looking forward to one day doing it.
Yep.
Okay, next item, facility rental rates.
Okay, so as you may know, the district owns a number of facilities that are available for public use. You want to take a short break?
I'll be right back.
Yeah,
I'd love to do the same.
Okay.
Much coffee this morning. Right behind you.
we're losing.
You don't wanna go up there, you don't wanna go up there and.
I would,
Come on, looks fun.
yeah, if we did a bucket, I did a little rope and saddle, but mostly from a boom truck, you know.
Okay.
So they don't like that either, huh? Hot and cold, huh?
No, they don't. They like it cold, but they don't.
Yeah.
6 and 10 you.
Do we go?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I think we're on the facility rent. So just to remind the committee, the district has several facilities that are available for use by other outside groups. Those include this room we call the boardroom, the community center, and then there are several locations within the recreation center that are available for use. And they all have kind of a variety of uses. All the uses, well, particularly this room and the community center, really tanked when COVID hit, almost became non-existent. And then they're slowly recovering, but we're not nearly as in demand as what they were pre-COVID. And I'm not, quite honestly, I'm not sure if they will resume. And I'm speaking primarily of the community center uses. A lot of the private activities, the birthday parties, wedding receptions. I think we specialize in funerals, those kinds of things. They just haven't come back, and then people have found other ways to do it, whether outdoor spaces or whatever. Nonetheless, the district hadn't adjusted facility rates since about 2014. I think that's when we did it last.
I think so.
Yeah, somewhere around
17, yeah.
8-9 years ago, somewhere in there. And so just kind of more recently, as we started getting some more use of the community center, you know, we get groups that come rent the place for like an hour, and I said, you know, by the time we just turn on the heater to heat the room up, we've spent more money getting the room warm than we got in income. So Carrie and Maya and Melissa kind of looked at our facilities, because all of them deal with this in one way or another. Maya's the primary point of contact for the use of the community center, and then folks work with Melissa directly for the recreation center. And looked at these and said, okay, you know, let's just do a quick comparison to some other neighboring facilities based on occupancy, and put together this little comparison that we sent you last week. And then additionally, they had proposed some rate adjustments based on the comparison, which were on the second sheet. We provided you hard copies. This would require a couple things. In order to implement it, it would require a couple of things. One, the fees are set by resolution in our master fee schedule, and then two, the fees are listed in the board bylaws. So I would probably actually remove the fee. I would probably recommend that the board revise the bylaws to reference the policy, but remove the fees and say, see master user fee schedule. So we don't make a mistake and not adjust that. Nonetheless, we wanted to talk about the proposed recommendations, and you can see on the second sheet that was provided for the rates for the boardroom, the community center, the rec center. We also have a couple places in parks that we reserve, sometimes for birthday parties, but often for like club teams or something else to use a sports field. So those are the current rates are listed in the first box, and then the proposed adjustments are in the second box, and then there's some notes for some add-ons.
So we just recommend.
Yeah, you know,
You send it to the board.
yeah, the board would have to approve this, again, because it would have to be approved by resolution. You know, I don't know, I looked at everything and it looks fairly modest, you know, and Carrie, Carrie and Melissa spent more time on this, so you guys have any specific comments or things that you think should be discussed?
I mean, we did a lot of comparison with other local similar facilities. So I think it kind of brought it into the, you know, the growing local rates, which a lot of agencies already updated their fees around COVID times or recently after. So I think it brings us up to a, you know, like a local standard in a sense. And it's also, they're not majorly significant increases. While they'll also simultaneously sort of provide some additional income for those rentals. Or through those rentals. So, captures a lot of the costs.
Given it's been 8 or 9 years, that looks very reasonable.
Still reasonable, yeah.
Increases don't look exorbitant at all.
Yeah, so I mean, nothing's doubling, you're right?
Yeah.
So, 10, 20 bucks here and there. It doesn't price anybody out of the, price anybody out of the game, right? So, still reasonable, so.
How often are you renting at the community center? Is it?
So we have, the community center is unique. We have a handful of very regular users, church groups that use it every Sunday or every Wednesday. Small, short periods of times, pretty small impact. And then we have like occasional, maybe monthly at this point, kind of parties, like where there's gonna have a big impact, larger group. Where they're doing the big setup and that kind of thing. So, does that sound about right?
It's all right, yeah.
It's really maybe half of what it was pre-COVID in terms of number of users.
I think the thought too is once we get the, the fees sort of solidified, starting to do maybe a little more marketing and advertising about the availability of the facilities, so. Specific to the community center, because that can be a revenue generator, so.
Well, it's certainly a cost, so if we can at least
It's if we can at least.
cover
balance.
our costs and,
Yeah.
there's value
This
to it,
this will
right?
break us even, or will it
Uh,
generate some kind of profit from these rentals?
That's what.
The variability of rental, right? I mean, it's kind of tough to say. This will, the more we rent it out, right, the more we will make on it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that the less it gets used, the more money
The
we're
more it
probably
costs.
losing on it, because we have fixed costs associated with maintaining it and certain things have to be done, whether there's a user in there or not. So we don't want the prices to chase any business away, but I didn't want to actually lose money on a single use. Like if you have to go in there and crank up the AC, sometimes we have a group that may come in there for just an hour. Well, if it's the middle of the summer, they gotta crank on the AC early and then, our costs arguably weren't even being met, before. And then this year with the gas prices going ballistic, right, over the winter time.
Yeah.
We have a group going there for an hour and all of a sudden you're like, wait, the gas bill costs more than the.
So I'm looking at the community center for the kitchen part, $20 for the kitchen. Is that per hour, $20, or is it just a one-time $20?
It's per use, right?
It was per use, right?
Yes, I mean, we have some expensive
So-
equipment.
We do. So here's the
But
problem.
none of it works.
Yeah,
I'm gonna ask.
But
the
we got a
data,
new
the-
refrigerator. Refrigerator is new in there.
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
but the refrigerator is gonna be on either way, right? The stove and the oven are turned off right now because some of the parts are on back order, and so. The kitchen access is really just to use the fridge and maybe a lot of the groups bring in caterers. To use sort of the island and the countertops, right, or serve through the window,
like to,
so.
yeah, right now what we're getting is when we first established the kitchen rate, the kitchen was put there for people to cook, like groups to cook in there. But over time, that's not been a big need. I mean, there's occasionally somebody will actually use it for real food prep, but that's not been a big use. But they all want access to the kitchen. They say, well, we're not gonna use anything. We just need to get in there to set our stuff up. And so what we kind of decided to do was became confusing. We were getting call out, and a couple weeks ago, I got called out to go there because one of the groups needed kitchen access. Well, they didn't even pay, they hadn't paid for it, and so they weren't given the code to get in. And they said, well, we're not really using the kitchen, but we have to get in there. So we wanted to clean up that policy and say, if you want access to the kitchen, it's $20. Well, it doesn't matter if you use anything or not. Because almost every group wants to be able to set up, to use that as a preparation or storage or to get things ready for any sort of meal
Does it make
service.
more sense to just absorb that cost and just do one fee, which includes kitchen access? And that way you're not having to differentiate, like you get access.
So I don't know, the churches probably don't have anything
Exactly.
for it. Like, there's some of the groups that are in there really regularly, like the churches, the sing-alongs, the bird singing. They're just gonna come and use the room and leave. There's no food, no snacks, no nothing like, they wouldn't, they probably don't have a need for it.
So like I see here is that their people separate, other places have separated between like profit and nonprofit, so like, could we say like churches and things like that would be
Yeah,
nonprofit?
Yeah, we have something called public purpose and
Private.
private.
Okay,
So anything that's like open to the public, we charge a public purpose rate.
okay,
If
so-
it's a private party, like
Yeah.
it's just you holding a birthday party for a kid or something, then we charge the private party rate.
So then
there's not a public
that should
rate.
include the private party, like that should include the kitchen then in the rate.
Yeah, we can fold that into there.
Right.
It just seems like there's some manpower costs there that
Try to track this.
track it, give access, determine who gets access, not. So is that cost, was that evaluated in this assessment for the fees? I mean, if that alleviates by just simply absorbing it and saying,
You mean raising the fees to include it kind of
Yeah.
a thing?
just raise it to include it, and then if they don't use it, they don't use it, but we're raising the cost to make it more market value anyway.
60.
As well as the kitchen fee right now,
20,
15.
it's 15 right now for kitchen access. It was proposed to 20. Just a flat fee of 20, but if we raise the overall 2-hour minimum to 60.
Oh,
Right, because
yeah.
then it would cover $20, right?
Yeah.
So instead of raising it to 50, raise it to 60, 2-hour minimum.
Oh, we still
Don't
need, we
cover
still
any
need a rate
inspection.
per hour after that, though, right? Would it be 2 hour?
It just looks like 2-hour minimum, $50, that's all it says, doesn't say.
So,
Well, it would be a $50 an hour rate with a 2-hour minimum.
but at $60 for the first 2 hours.
So we could do $60 for the first 2
Oh, I
hours
see what you're saying.
and then a 50. I think if we just make it.
It'd be
$60
$120
an hour,
for the first 2 hours and then $50 an hour after that,
We could do that.
right? That's what you're kind of saying.
Yeah, and then the $60 is still, let me see. So how much is, for example, the church paying now?
They're a public purpose,
Yeah,
I think,
18
so
bucks an
they're
hour.
paying 18 an hour.
So now they're paying 18 an hour, and then so we're proposing to go to
25.
25, okay, so theirs isn't gonna change. Oh, wait,
Well, it does go.
Well, it'll go up
some.
$7.
no,
an
no,
hour.
I mean, I'm talking about, I'm sorry, in terms of, we're not talking $60 an hour.
No.
So theirs be 25, and then they have $20, so do,
But we can, like I said,
okay,
I'm agreeable to almost anything that makes this simpler, because
Yeah.
here's the problem. Is the rental business takes place when people are at work. The transactions, but the use takes place in the evenings and on weekends, and they call me.
yes.
And I hate that,
Yeah, of course.
because they lock themselves in the room, they can't get in the kitchen, you know,
Yeah.
they come to the fire department for help. It's really a very difficult
Yeah.
component to support based on how we're structured. We don't have people working weekends.
Right.
So, you know, it's not like a convention center where there's a staff there. So, yeah, if maybe it makes sense to just fold in the kitchen a little bit with the regular users, I think are generally not using it.
Yeah, they don't.
And even if the door's open, I'm not sure it matters. They're not bringing a bunch of food in, they're not impacting it.
They're
Maybe it makes
required
sense
to
to
clean up
just-
after themselves. And also, we have made it, the rental rates are so difficult that we cannot use an online rental system. Right? Because there are so many ifs, thens, that's, buts,
You could
right?
deter people.
So we can't just
Wow.
like,
Right, if they
oh,
get too
I wanna
high-
rent this facility for X
I mean,
number of
people like to
dollars.
rent online and like book things online.
Absolutely.
This is a hindrance to that in the future.
Exactly.
Well, we could publish the rates are all published online, are all available, but they have to come. They are, this isn't administratively
It's admin heavy.
heavy, because first of all, most of the, especially not the regular users, but if you wanted to hold a birthday party there, first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna come in, check the dates. Okay, we gotta do that over the phone or whatever. And then 2, you're gonna wanna go look at the facility, because you probably haven't been there in a while. So they come in, they check out a key, so we have to deal with that. And then they'll have questions. I mean, they can sometimes take multiple visits in quite a bit of time just to book a 2-hour use of the building. So we've spent more money than we're making before they even get there.
Right.
So this, I would agree, the simpler we can make this, the fewer problems that we have.
So if this is a stepping stone to maybe simplify that process by simply just absorbing this cost, which sounds like it would alleviate a lot
So
of.
that's one of the things we
administration
did
from you.
about 8 or 9 years ago for this room. We said, you know what? This room, I don't want any of those rules to apply if it's business hours. It's super easy. You just open the door.
Yeah.
And we're right here. If there's a problem, we just address. We don't have to have an inspection fee or deposits and all that stuff, because it's just, we're already here. It's the community center, there's, it's not attached to another building. It operates kind of in isolation. And then, just to make matters a little bit more complicated, we have the community center wasn't built by the district, it was built by the Women's Club. And so we have an agreement with them that they can use it anytime they want at no cost, and we provide setup and takedown.
Yeah.
For that.
I think that, maybe we should also charge them more for weekend use. Versus weekdays, like if they're having a party on the weekend, so like try to simplify
Almost
this.
all of the,
The-
yeah, the boardroom has an after hours
Like,
rate,
community
but the
center.
community center, because there's nobody there. If there's an issue, it's gonna cause somebody to go there, whether it's
Well,
weekday
I
or
think-
weekend.
Yeah, but still.
Oh, so you're saying there's no differentiation.
There's no difference.
Right now.
If it's a weekend or a weeknight, nobody's there. Right? Someone has to come out no matter what.
There's a call out, so like,
Call out, yeah.
yeah, and the call out has a, like, if they get a call of a utility operator, I'm paying the response time for that call.
Yeah.
So there's a cost, every time there's an issue, we're losing money on the building.
And our.
Because our-
Bulk of the calls or a good chunk of them related to access to the kitchen.
No. They locked in, well, every building has little different issues. They lock themselves in or out. There's just little hiccups. They didn't get the key. They forgot to come, like one time just recently, we had an issue where we're closed on a Friday. And the person, it was a holiday and they didn't come, and so they didn't have it, so I created a call, they should come to the fire. So the fire department, so they'll eventually get there and just call me and
It sounds
then,
like there's a bigger issue to
Yeah.
talk about, but.
yeah. It's just.
I mean, that could be like an access code to the door that you guys manage or whatever, instead of a key that's traveling from the office to the facility users or.
Yeah,
You
there
can
could
track
be
those
other
now
things that
and
we
you
could
can-
do.
Yeah, that's what
or
I'm saying. It sounds
like
like
some-
there's needs to be like a bigger discussion. And I know it requires money, which will also require a bigger discussion.
yeah.
so-
But I mean, you're right, it's just it's an inconvenient service for how we're structured.
Right.
We're not a rental. service,
When it
so
sounds
we're-
like
we're not
it's
a property
expensive on the
administrator.
administration side too, where the administration requirements kind of outweigh the benefit of the rental.
Yeah, so I think you have to look at it from the perspective of why do public agencies have community buildings? It's because we want to create a gathering place. It's a service for the community. It's not a moneymaker.
Right,
Even like convention centers and stuff aren't really
right.
money makers, right? They're supposed to be like an economic attraction to the area. So it ends up being, so folks might see this and go, wow, you're gouging me for $175. I'm like, really, no. It's by the time you make 3 or 4 trips here to get everything worked out, and then we require insurance, so they go get quotes, and we've got to get a quote for them, and so, it ends up being somewhat burdensome.
There's nothing to rent the park, which is an open space, is $250 just starting, so,
Just show up.
Yeah. yeah.
Show up and open tables.
Right, I like the gazebos.
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah, I don't see why I'm just absorbing the kitchen
Yeah, I
cost.
think, yeah.
Okay, we'll take another
So-
stab at
Yeah.
kind of addressing that.
Buy it for you guys. I think.
The 2-hour minimum for $60 and then 50 after that.
I don't know if you could do the same for the other.
And then no.
Well, this isn't as big of an issue, and I think
Includes
this one,
kitchen, it includes.
we've had a group need to fail to show up in time, and really now with the fire department here, they can just let it in if there was a problem, they wouldn't call, but.
But for these.
So that would apply for the community center and the
I
rec
think that'll-
center.
But Melissa,
The
on
separate kitchen costs.
the rec center, you always have no demand for the kitchen there.
Oh, yeah, no, there's almost no demand for the rec center, period. Most of what people want to do there are gonna be backyard birthday parties, right? Or meetings for like sports groups, like the youth football league meets there. So the demand on the kitchen is minimal, so. Other than like the preschool, they're a rental, right? They use the kitchen, but they maintain the kitchen, so.
They're like a
They're kind
regular-
of like an ongoing, long-term, we share space, that's, I have this shelf, you have the rest of them. So,
Like you said, Jeff, we're not looking to make money, we're looking to break even, by service to the community. These rates will continue to help me maybe break even.
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't wanna chase the business off, and we're not, there is value in having them, but I don't want someone to come in and us, just turning the heater on is like a loss.
Yes.
That was.
Especially for buildings that sit empty, right? The rec center, we're there, right? Similar to the boardroom during business hours,
Yeah.
right? So
The community center.
it's already, yeah.
Winter time, we were going, let's go turn it
Yeah,
on.
someone go early and get the heater cranked.
Yeah,
you know, see, that's what,
exactly.
and it's very much an on your honor thing, like, we check out a key. I don't know when the Lions Club shows up. They pay for an hour and a half. They might be there 2.5 hours. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, it's not monitored, it's not monitored
Right.
like that. It's a sort of an on your honor.
That sounds, yeah, the
Okay.
manpower on that sounds way more excessive than the benefit.
Yeah. All right, okay, so any other questions, comments? No, public questions? Okay. So you guys are just gonna go ahead,
Yeah, we'll
Just
come
adjust
up
it
with
and
some
then
adjustments.
take it to the board from there?
Yeah.
You don't need to bring it back here, okay, all right. Parks, conditions and maintenance, yes, I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, we just wanted to have a discussion on our parks conditions, and I think that did trigger, this item did trigger the note that that we received yesterday, which we forwarded to the
Yes.
committee members and made available, so just so the committee members know, just as we get into this, Melissa's group runs all the programming that's at the park. And we pay for our parks maintenance staff out of the Parks and Recreation Fund, but the parks maintenance staff work for Justin, who's our utilities manager. We don't charge, parks maintenance doesn't pay for any of Justin's time, but he does supervise the parks maintenance staff. And parks maintenance has been an ongoing challenge. This is not something that's necessarily new. But we thought it would be worthy of just talking to the committee about, where we stand now. We're coming off a really rough year, in a number of ways. Let me rewind the clock like 10 years. So for a long time, we had a utility operator whose primary job it was to take care of the parks. And he did a phenomenal job, quite honestly. It was a one-person, one-man show, didn't require a lot of supervision, had a lot of pride in his work. And the parks were kept to a very high standard, which the community appreciated with one individual, although the costs for that individual were higher. When that person retired, the district made a decision to, instead of having a utility operator, which is a substantially higher pay rate, take care of grounds, that we would fill the position as a maintenance worker, which is like, let's say a third lower pay, or maybe less, maybe 40% lower pay, something along those lines. And so we did. We had a difficult time 6 years ago filling that position. We went through several part-time employees, and several of our utility operators were sort of subbing in. We got somebody, he was in that role for about 5 years, retired about 14 months ago. Since then, we've had 2 additional full-time employees take this on. One lasted about 4 or 5 months last summer, and we had another gap where we send over other crew, utility operators to maintain the park. So in 2022 was particularly rough. We had a retiring employee, we had a substitute with other district employees for a gap period, brought on a new maintenance worker. That person left 4 or 5 months later, another gap, brought on a new maintenance worker in December. So we had really like maybe 5 or 6 different people whose primary responsibility was the park last year. So when our latest person came on board with the parks being in, far below ideal circumstances or conditions. And then we had this really wet, really rough winter, which was really hard on all of the facilities. So just the weather conditions and whatnot. The district just had long recognized that we weren't seeing the kind of maintenance quality that we expected, and so we developed a goal some years ago about putting more resources towards parks maintenance. And actually, the board approved in February, and we started in March, kind of a half-time additional maintenance person. And so for the past 2 months or so, we've had another half-time person on scene. And so that's sort of the current condition of our maintenance efforts in terms of what's devoted at the parks. Anytime there's something that really goes wrong, or when the parks person isn't there, we pull somebody off of the utility side to go kind of assist or help or whatever with a parks effort. Because a lot of the tasks require more than one individual, and some require more than 2. So you'll see people other than those maintenance workers doing work at the park when the time comes. So that's kind of where we stand in terms of the manpower and whatnot. But we wanted to kind of just talk about the current condition of the facility and what the committee recommends, be done to further improve it.
I mean, hold on, did you?
So, yeah, I mean, Melissa's the one she's the one who's out there during practices and during games
Yeah.
and hears from the parents
Yeah, no.
and the kids who are primary, again, with the sports facilities in particular, sports programs in particular.
Specific to Bethel German Park, right? Bethel and Evers. It's been rough. The fields are hardly playable. They're really uneven ground. There's been, I mean, a major gopher invasion. We have gopher service at both parks, right? But it's been difficult to keep up with. There's some big issues with like the lip between the dirt and the grass on the softball fields. The grass is encroaching on the softball field on field 2. There's more mud and dirt than grass in some spaces. It's been a big issue. So, and I will say, the parks workers have had their work cut out for them, frankly. It got so far behind for a while that it, every effort to just get it back into condition is noticed, but it seems like just churning your wheels and not getting anywhere. So, but it's been a big issue. Last year I had a couple of sprained ankles at Evers alone. There was a few breaks at Bethel. I got a picture at one point of a coach with her whole foot and up to like the lower part of her calf inside of a gopher hole that wasn't filled. It's been an issue. So, and then, the constant feedback. This year, we lost a soccer camp in the summertime. They won't come back to Evers because they went to Barney Schwartz instead. And it was one that we started and brought to the North County and they refused to come back. So, and it was specifically due to parks condition. So.
It's like, I walk around, the Tom German Park too, and every time I drive it, there's an issue with the sprinkler systems, they're watering the streets. I mean, I don't know how many pictures I've sent you. And the other, it's like, I'm walking there, I'm looking what's going on. People come up to me and they start complaining about the condition over there. I mean, people can't even really walk around the park anymore. I mean, and you look at the shrubs, things are just not looking good. So I don't know, we do need to do something. We need to, it's a service that we should be providing the residents. So I'm not really too happy with the condition of the parks either. So I don't know what you guys' experience has been.
I just went to Evers for the first time this morning and I noticed gopher mounds all over the place and uneven surfaces. It looks dangerous.
It's not safe. It's not safe. So,
That's the concern is that if there's a liability now, because it's a known liability, people have already been injured, so that's kind of a concern too, that opens the district to lawsuits and additional costs outside of just maintaining the parks. So what I guess, what is the plan or what is the proposal?
obviously right now,
To address?
We looked at outside vendors.
that's what I was
That's what
wondering.
we were.
I was wondering.
Could it
Well,
be
so-
up to speed? It could be, is it?
So
something
we
outsourced?
do, we talked about trees just a little bit ago, right? That would be an outside vendor. We have gophers, we have a gopher service that we're paying $550 a month at Evers Park alone for gopher control and not being very effective with it.
Yeah.
Is that based on the service or just based on?
Well, he sends me pictures. He got like 80 of them last week.
Is there just like a gopher infestation in
It's,
the
yeah,
area?
it's huge. They go to where the water is, right? And parks are where the water's at. So, and I think there was maybe some, like a water leak underground or something that was going on for a while that just really invited them over, Evers.
There's like huge like mud zones in Everest, like in certain.
Yeah, I mean, so
But that's, that's
over
always-
time, this is really a cumulative issue.
Right.
That, when everything's, when Evers Park was first developed, probably everything was working well. Over time, we've had, our turnover is a big part of our problem. Because every time somebody else takes over, they might replace the sprinkler part with something that's not identical. And then,
Yeah.
or some other repair solution is hard for the next person to replicate. We have got some challenges with the sprinkler. We replaced the sprinkler clock out there, but still have had some challenges with programming and maintaining the irrigation system and the irrigation clock. You know, we're dealing with a older, most of the infrastructure in the park is older, does have some issues. But the staff turnover, I think, is a pretty significant portion of our.
Do you think
Our
it's more
challenges.
cost effective than to outsource this than to?
I don't know. I don't have a current, I mean, so there's a few things. So, we could find a business that would mow. But the park that would mow and maybe even take care of the grounds. But parks maintenance we're asking a lot more than that out of our folks. One, we're daily stocking and cleaning restrooms. So any outsourcing would have to include janitorial service. We're doing, field striping. And we'll talk about that in a minute which is a pretty intense, part of the duty. Those parks folks also take care of our other facilities like the grounds here, and the grounds of the community center. So all of those would need to be folded in. I think there was some research into outsourcing about a decade ago. It was before my time, a little bit before my time. Again, there was the district would need to hire somebody or the outsource would need to be done at prevailing wage. The cost would be higher than what we're devoting to it now. Our recent effort has been to add more manpower. I think it's quite frankly, maybe just too soon to judge whether or not that's produced results. Coming off again of kind of poor conditions in a rough winter, it might be too soon to say, are we getting are we seeing the benefit of that other, let's say, call it 25 grand a year that we've put towards parks maintenance. But I think the one of the things that makes it challenging is because we're small. If we were a city, we'd have a parks crew, and you'd have folks that had because you'd have more facilities and whatnot, a bigger city, I guess. And you'd have folks that were more senior, and that you could afford to bring on some younger folks and train them up because you'd have somebody on site that had that experience. In our case, we really need the one person we have to be the parks expert. And we're not able to obtain that with what we're doing presently. I'm not sure what we're doing is the right solution. But I think it was done because of budgetary constraints in terms of.
So historically, what has been kind of the retention rate of this particular position?
Well, the position's only existed for like 6 years.
So within the 6 years, how
We've
many?
had-
are they
this is-
filling?
We've had 3 full-time people, and we've really had a tremendous difficulty in getting one each time we've recruited.
The guy who retired 10 years ago, is he available to train people?
Yes, well, consult with, I guess.
So,
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I've called him a few times and he's,
It's time
he
to go
helps.
on, David.
He's he's more of a doer than a thinker, right? So it's difficult. Like I called him a little while ago to ask if he remembers where a particular water main access was, and he had he couldn't remember. So
It's
it's been
over 6 years now.
6-7 years since he set foot in a park. So
Yeah, he was excellent.
an incredible doer. Absolutely. Liked being busy, took a lot of pride in the beautification, right?
And our programs have grown since then, so we're putting more wear and tear on the parks than we were a decade ago as well. And that's a part of it.
But he was a utility operator.
Yes,
so
he
he
was.
was getting paid well. I mean,
Differently.
more than-
Differently than we're structured now.
So
But
do we go
Justin,
back- yeah.
Justin supervises our folks, right? So
What-
the
what's your
maintenance side, so
thought?
yeah.
What can we do?
Well,
You gotta improve our-
Yeah, I don't want to skip several, but I'm also hopeful about a new parks tractor and attachments. When Mark was trying to maintain, when he was maintaining the parks at a high level, he had equipment that was newer and it was able to aerate, for instance, and help out with some of that leveling in the fields and some of the gophers issues. And I mean, just a number of things, a small tractor with attachments and parks like Evers and Bethel would, I think, have a tremendous effect on the playability on just a number of things, in those fields. what we have currently is used across the board for everything from, maintaining Selby to, I mean, it's used across the board. It gets a lot of wear and tear, and it breaks often. You would think that it's older. It's a 1998, it's a smaller John Deere tractor, but it's been used so hard for that period of time. And all the attachments that we have are no longer, I don't want to jump to it, but the pictures that we have for the attachments, the aerator, for instance, we haven't had one for years. I think Melissa made a comment possibly yesterday that believes, and I don't want to put words, but maybe it's been, 6+ years since we did aerate the fields. And that's largely because we don't have the equipment that works. I tried to the best of my ability last year to find a volunteer. That didn't go. I mean, I tried to find equipment, in other public agencies, private companies that I could be able to borrow equipment. Largely either it's being used at the same time that you'd like to be used, or they did have a problem with a liability of risk of lending it out, and who's going to repair it and those sorts of things. And I really appreciate the school district here being helpful and supportive. Again, they're using their equipment as well, and so that's been a tough thing to kind of bridge. So looking for support with a small parks tractor in the future moving forward.
Would that be an immediate solution to kind of move us forward in addressing this issue?
I think
We can kind of.
it would have,
Having the equipment to do the job would be a significant difference maker.
especially for like what we could do as our staff versus throwing CIP type, field renovation type monies at it. But if we're talking about just our staff and what we could do to try and help out some of those problems, I think it's gonna help tremendously for our staff to be able to get out there, user-friendly equipment that don't have to be experts necessarily and be a 35-year veteran park staff, be able to operate, and we can get out there and do the job and improve the parks, the fields.
So what the immediate concern are the gopher holes and kind of some of the
In the uneven, yeah. It
areas.
affects the playability, right? So like June 16th, we start flag football, we'll build 3 fields out there and hope for the best. So.
They don't hope for the best. All it takes is one area.
And we have like 280 kids, I think, so we might have to use Bethel also, so. I was just looking at numbers because it just closed Friday, so.
So how do we, I guess, close up? Like, what is the?
Even as we speak, I mean, over the last like a month and a half, our part-time staff, if he came on 2 months ago, 2 weeks into him being here, he's been going around and trying to take empty 5-gallon buckets and try to remove some of that gopher mound debris, and then try to come back and with a 5-gallon bucket of material and try and fill that in. Absolutely top dressing it and laying seed it's all a part of the process. If we had a tractor, we'd be able to take it out there with a bucket now of, top dressing material, backfilling seed, top dressing, make sure the irrigation is on, those sorts of things. It does take, it's constant work, absolutely. And so that we all have a vested interest in seeing, them get, better improved out there and ensuring camps do not leave and go to Paso.
Is that something that we could look to like outsource right now to rectify the immediate problem as we explore kind of a more long-term solution, just to get us up to?
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends on how significant we want to be. I mean, really, one of the recommendations from Brightview's work was to reconstruct the whole Everest Park field. You can't really just keep putting Band-Aids on them.
Right.
But you're talking about $1 million worth of renovation. It's not a maintenance item at that point. If you're gonna pull out all the irrigation, regrade the entire facility, reinstall new irrigation, it's a really significant cost.
What do we need though to alleviate some of the liability issue today? So just to get us.
We
in a
need
safe
daily,
zone.
we need our folks to deal with this daily. We need to get the gopher mounds flattened daily and the holes filled daily.
But so you said we kind of got backlogged because of kind of the retention issue.
But you need their
Do we-
equipment to do that. You can't do that with a 5 gallon bucket.
Do we need, do we maybe outsource to get us kind of up to speed and then from there? Cause I would hate to put pressure on this new person to work out backlog of the last couple of years. And then
Yeah.
they leave because they get so overwhelmed with the backlog. Can we bring in some immediate?
Well, I think that's what we
support?
try to do, is bring in the second person, right? So we brought in a second halftime person. We can bring in additional staff members.
Temporary.
Temporary persons. We would need the budget to do that, but we could bring on additional. I think what the stuff that you're discussing now, these gopher holes and some, it's handwork. It's stuff that has to be dealt with manually.
It sounds like with proper equipment, that will help alleviate kind of the length of time of the manual labor. If we get the proper equipment.
Yeah.
in there, is
No,
that,
deep aeration, if we go through, for instance, like Evers on a more regular basis, laying down different amendments and deep aerating, we also have the ability, we've been fortunate enough in the past to borrow a verticutter, which is kind of a dethatcher for just opening up those soils. You know, some of the soils that we have, as they may be referenced these areas as detention basins, like storm water runoff detention basins. Some of the soils themselves, they're poor soils for what maybe perhaps they're being used for. So opening them up and having them breathe is imperative, right? And then that sort of work can help prevent gophers or discourage the incredible, I mean, they're just to your, like 80 some gophers. The fellow sends you photos of like 80 some gophers because they're just exploding. So they're deterred in some fashion by those sorts of works, along with continued efforts in trying to capture them as well.
Can we use the utility operators that we have right now and just
Yes,
put this
they are.
as a
They are.
top priority, because we are gonna have.
But when they do work at the parks, they're billed against the parks fund, right?
Well, I mean.
But that's what happens. That's what's happening. That's what happens every time we have a vacancy or some emergency happens. We need to devote more personnel.
Navi,
Well, we don't wanna get.
they were, the utility operators were there this morning. They were there yesterday. And they're there on a continual basis all the time, either trying to, there was I think yesterday afternoon, the request, there was some valves that were broken in the
We got it on
first and
video.
second
They got
field.
They got the first one last week and yesterday I saw that they had a structure up and they must have fixed it on the second field.
They're there on a constant basis, though. They're string trimming right now, all along the back. They're mowing and string trimming all along the bank of Evers down towards the back of the facility. It's not just there, it is the community around the community garden, the skate park, the community center, the office here. That Jeff was describing, Bethel. So it is absolutely constant. It's Selby. It's the treatment plant. It's all the well sites. It's absolutely every day trying to utilize and optimize our staff to the greatest ability that we can.
Is that sustainable in the long run to put that much?
Well, we just have to.
I'm gonna take that as a no. So I guess the concern is immediately, there's a liability issue. We're aware of it. People are getting hurt. It's not just a possibility that they could get hurt. So what can we do today to address that liability and take that off the table? Because
Well, the only thing is to cancel the programs, right?
no, we can't do that.
No,
Well, then
we
that takes
can't,
money
so-
away.
Yeah, so it's
So
just like.
can there,
the
is a
gophers are the
landscaper or
gophers.
somebody can help come in and rectify the immediate problem?
Yeah, I
As
think
we
that.
work on this kind of long-term equipment, because I know all that costs money. What can we do?
I think in the very short term, we could add additional manpower, but I think I think isolating the most current issues to something that's outsourced is gonna be difficult, because it's day-to-day things that it's day-to-day maintenance. It's not a one-time upgrade that's necessary, that we need to deal with in the very short term. So we can add, we can have our part-time person work more hours. That's something that could potentially start ASAP. You know, if we have the budget available for it. Just keep in mind, I think the biggest issue is the biggest constraint is financial constraint. You know, without the budget to work with, whether you hire another person or you outsource something, you have to pay for it all. Now, when you go through the budget workshop in a couple weeks, you'll see we're doing pretty well. We're finally recovering in Parks and Recreation. This was a budget that was underwater for ever.
19 years.
Yeah. So we're finally getting out of that because we've merged the solid waste fund. And so it's a new revenue stream for Parks and Recreation. There's more resources available. That's why we were able to add this new part-time staff member. But we can work that person more in the short term, at least through June, to try to get a handle on the facilities if we think that's going to be effective.
In the short term, do you have a group of coaches that would help you on a volunteer basis to come do some of this
We're out there every day doing this
already?
already. I go to Evers twice a week, 3 times a week in the mornings, turn on the water to water the infield because it's not on any type of automatic timers. It's that ball valve that they just replaced for us. We didn't have the valve. We couldn't turn on our sprinklers to water our dirt to keep it from turning into powder. But we've been, out of our own budget, our softball board budget, we've been putting in clay for the batters boxes and the pitchers areas because the rest of the material is just sand. But if you don't keep water on clay, it turns to powder and dies. So my own personal time, I'm out there trying to water it. Until this last week, I've been with a garden hose trying to water an entire infield. By the time I'm done with the whole thing, everything's dry again. And I'm back trying to do it again. So now that we have the sprinklers and Kyle, who's the new kid out there mowing grasses and stuff like that, been a tremendous help with me. We've talked often. He was the one that helped push getting those valves fixed quicker and saw the needs. So we're doing that. And we had a volunteer come in Sunday and the second field, the grass was growing into the infield. We lost second base. It was covered in grass. He came in with a tractor that he borrowed from his own company and regraded that whole area for us at a no charge as a volunteer donation thing. So we're constantly doing it. Yeah, I've watched Kyle on the riding lawnmower and we joke he needs a 4-point harness on that thing because he's bouncing around so bad that just a lap belt, he might fall out of it. He won't because it works, but it's brutal. The third base side of Shelby Field, the first field, is horrible with the Gophers. Just around third base, and there's probably a broken or cracked irrigation valve or sprinkler that drips a little longer, and because it's super lush grass, so the Gophers are going there. You go to the right field side of that field, and it's browned out already because this, it's just the one person. I think you guys are onto something with giving that part-time guy more time to help him because it's such an uphill battle. We're hosting a all-star tournament the weekend that school gets out, and I talked to Kyle about it because he usually cuts the grass on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, but the grass right now is growing so great because of the winter we had and everything. I asked him, can you please cut the grass on Friday so it's actually a good tournament length instead of already grown, and kids, you can't even see the kids' shoes in the outfield because it grows that quick. This winter was great. It flushed out all of the crud from irrigating water, the fields, but makes more maintenance.
Yeah, I think really it's difficult to judge whether our current efforts are gonna be sufficient in the long term, because we're coming off, really was a disastrous kind of a year last year.
It's just the time of year too, right? Everything is just growing, everything's changed. So we may need to mention, have more, spend more time right now. So, and then maybe comes later on, a couple of months down the road, we don't need
Yeah,
it.
so I think in the immediate, let me review our budget figures for the current year. We may be able to work our new part-time person more hours, at least through the end of June.
Yeah.
Is the part-time guy available to work more?
I believe so, but we could find it out really quick.
And what, I guess, the estimated cost of the equipment that
Well, I
you were
think that's-
explaining,
that's
is that part of?
It's
the-
on this, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead.
I've got one more comment. I'm not sure who you guys are using for your gopher service. And I know they're catching a lot of them, but I was down there last week. I was working on field 2, trying to get the sprinklers to work. And I looked and there was a red pickup truck that I saw drive in the field. I sat there for about 2 or 3 minutes and then left. So as I left, which was probably 10 minutes later, that same red pickup was parked right next to the mini storage that's right there. And it said Ace Gopher Service on it. I'm not sure if that's who you guys are using, but I don't know that there's much oversight on your gopher service. And like, when talking with Kyle, he's like, I'm here, I'm there, I'm here, I'm there, so I can't see that they're not just, yeah, we came by Evers and we took out 80 gophers and here's a picture, and is that from some other site? Because there's not enough people, right? And it's a challenge. It happens to every business, you know, are they getting taken advantage of?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's who you guys use or not.
Ace or Apex, I'll have to double check.
Yeah, it was a red,
Something
it was a
like
red
that.
pickup, and
Yeah.
I think it was that, and I was gonna stop and talk to him, and I was just like,
Okay,
Well, if
It's
we have
not my
gopher
spot.
problems, we need to contact them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah.
Gopher problems, so improve that, I mean,
Yeah.
we already have a third party, right? We already have it.
Yeah, we've outsourced that.
So might as well contact them and see what's going on.
Yeah.
If
They
they,
don't fill the holes that the gophers leave though, so that would be
Yeah.
different.
but that would, I mean, you would think they would take care of that stuff too, right? I mean, once they take the,
Is there a
get
service
the
out there
gopher,
that does
yeah.
the removal and the re?
yeah,
Is
no,
that
it seems like they would,
Yeah, I mean, if they
Yeah.
take the gopher out, they know where the mounds are and they can gopher out, they shouldn't leave a hole in it.
I reached out to them, maybe 3 weeks ago, and because I didn't understand the times that they were coming and going.
Sure.
Because we didn't have evidence, we didn't know that they were doing, where they were doing work and what time. And he explained how he comes right before sundown, that
Okay.
that's the most active. And so,
So if that's the case, I'm out there
Yeah.
with our team, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, from 5 to 7 o'clock. Never seen it.
Sound like we need to
Yeah.
revisit our outsourcing.
And that's just the last 2 weeks, and before that,
That
we
might be
were
an immediate
on the
thing.
fields all the time with practices, things of that nature.
did he say what day he shows up? Is
he
it
said
weekly?
I think he said on
Providers are there, though.
Wednesdays and Fridays, but maybe perhaps like Evers was both of those days, whereas maybe Bethel was, or German Park was just one of those. I
Okay,
can't really.
Yeah.
Weeks ago.
I just-
okay,
And to that with the safety concerns, but also, when we have such a huge turnout for our soccer group, there's what, 700 plus kids that
nice.
yeah, I mean, amazing. Kids from Paso and Cascadero wanna come play in Templeton. I've got a daughter who's a goalie who plays at her first year at German Park. She doesn't wanna dive for a ball because it's bare, hard dirt. It's not grass. So we're at a disadvantage. We wanna create great athletes and student athletes and stuff. And we're at a disadvantage bringing them up on their training because you can go to Barney Schwartz, which obviously they have a great budget, people donate a lot of money to build the park, all of that kind of things. But they've got perfect grass, they're able to shut down fields where we're not, we can't shut down a field because we have all the sports going on 2 parks. So it's just, I don't know that there's a great solution or fix. I wish I had one, cause I would have helped figure it out already, but it's disheartening with the amount of money, cause we're paying the same entry fee to come play here as we would if we went to play in Paso, but we love the community and love the programs, and they're growing.
Well, that has a long-term impact on our budget too, because if we lose people from our programs.
Correct,
anyway,
correct.
Budget, so
Yeah,
it's definitely
so-
something.
I just wanted to make sure I emphasize the importance of how important youth sports are to this community. Not only budget just for the youth, you know, that those COVID years, killed those kids.
Yeah, no.
You know, and it hurt the rec program because people went to club teams and different things because they could play under no watchful eye of government. So,
No, we appreciate your comments. No,
Yeah.
we definitely taken it to heart and
thank you guys.
we're
We're
gonna
gonna, if I see other stuff.
try to
Yeah,
do, yeah.
like I said, Kyle, from what I can see, is doing a fantastic job. He's just got such an uphill battle.
Thank you. We'll contact the promoter company, maybe see see more, more time into it and we'll see.
Thank
Then
you.
maybe report back. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, David.
Any other questions, comments on this item? No, okay. The next one is the Templeton High School, cooperative use and funding with Templeton High School tennis and basketball.
Yeah,
Course lighting.
I'll try to introduce this because I worked on this like 6 years ago, but I couldn't find that I ever provided a written update to the committee. So conceptually, going back a while, Templeton High School wanted to resurface the tennis courts and they were considering adding lighting and wanted to know if we could help fund that for public benefit, for, you know, non-school hour public benefit. And so that led to a couple of things. Yes, we theoretically could, provided the public benefits it, we can even use like development impact fees, we have a contractual arrangement to ensure the public has access to these facilities. But Melissa was really more interested in expanding lighting to the high school, the outdoor high school basketball courts, because we have assigned practice times at that facility, but there's no lights. And so in the winter time, that means there's pretty limited practice opportunity. The high school's interest in that project just sort of went away about 5 years ago for reasons I don't know. It kind of just, we were in regular contact, then it just kind of vanished. They've also had a lot of turnover in their MOT manager kind of role. And then recently they contacted Melissa about, would we be interested in resurrecting this concept? They found a new lighting system that doesn't rely on overhead lights. The cost before was high because they were going to construct light standards that had lights overhead on the tennis courts and on the basketball courts to provide lighting, at least on the tennis courts, that would support league play. That was the goal at the time. And now they're looking at some other lower cost solutions that install LED lighting on the existing fence line and provide lighting kind of horizontally. They've given us a couple of illustrations to show where the lighting would be effective. And I think I've not seen anything yet on the basketball courts. So this was just a way of introducing this concept to you. We are interested in, so I think from the current youth sports we operate, there's an interest in seeing if lighting a basketball facility would suffice, providing lighting in the basketball facility would provide sufficient lighting for practice. If that's the case, that's something we'd like to consider. It's not going to be, it may not be ideal, and I really would like to even visit or see that in action as opposed to just illustrations, because of the way basketball is played. You have a lot of stuff looking up in the sky, looking upwards. Tennis, the tennis courts probably less significant, even if the facility wouldn't light the center. They have a forecourt facility there now. It's often open after hours. There's just a gate that's sometimes locked, sometimes open. We have no contractual. There's no obligation right now for the school district to make that available to the community, but in the past, they were not opposed to it if we participated in some way. So I would only want to move forward if these became publicly available and schedulable for our facilities, and they provided real public enhancements. The issue is that's different now than it was 5 or 6 years ago, is we have this big dream at Everest Park that we know we're going to be budget constrained on now. So we don't really know what it's going to take. We're talking about using the same pot of money, right? This Parks Facilities Impact Fee Fund, which has got a little over $1 million, and we got some grant funds for Everest Park, but just a limited amount. If whatever we use out of this pot, if we're able to, then would no longer be available for Everest Park. But we don't have a firm proposal. We don't even have firm pricing. And as we sit here today, we don't know that the concept would work, but I think we're intrigued by this concept of a lower cost lighting system, and it might be sufficient for practices. Is that also fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
All those courts are in bad need of being resurfaced. Are the basketball courts also?
The basketball courts are on a pretty regular maintenance schedule. They're blacktop, so, you know,
The standard is
They
this
get-
high also.
yeah, they get resurfaced every few years or so. They're on a pretty regular rotation. The thing with the tennis courts is they are up for this summer going to be resurfaced. So part of the deal with this is while they have it all chewed up, might as well install the conduit and all the, you know, infrastructure for putting the lights and the, you know, run the lines, right? So I think that's kind of the intention. And Randy Botts, the MOT director over there, is, you know, pretty gung ho about it. So I think it's going to happen at least on the tennis courts. And while we're doing it, we might as well throw those lights up on the basketball courts. So wanting to make sure that we've got the right, you know, the right models for it. So.
But I don't know how fast this is gonna move or what level of engagement we're gonna be able to have. That, like I said, this is, their interest in our participation has kind of come and gone over the years. And I would not recommend proceeding unless we could provide public access. We really, our role is to look out for the interests of the community members, not this, which include the school kids, but not you know, improving something at the high school that doesn't provide public, non-school benefit would be a sketchy use of our resources.
2020, when things shut down at Temple Tennis Ranch, I played over at Temple High School, and the courts were open all the time. But they're in lousy shape.
They're supposed to be now, the school district, the staff, the custodial staff, they, and frankly, the teachers as well, lock the courts up, obviously during the school hours. School hours also changed this year, right? So the kids are in school at the high school until about 3:30 instead of 2:50. So the open timeframes have changed. And I think part of what happened with that sort of changeover is the custodial staff kind of forgets to come back and unlock the gates for the outdoor access. So it's something I did talk to Randy about the other day. And I'll stay on top of him about it. I saw something on the Facebook about it too, not long ago, about them always being locked and why don't we have access? So I'll just stay on top of him about it because he's got a, you know.
They're not opposed to public access as long as it's restricted to those outdoor facilities.
After school hours.
And after. So I think at least previously they were on board with making that available. And you know, we don't have public tennis courts in this community, right? So like, and you shouldn't have to be a member of a country club to pick up a new activity. So.
Any other questions, comments about this?
I guess it could open the door to like a tennis camp or something in the summer.
Well, we have cooperation with the tennis.
Yeah,
ranch.
tennis ranch is running one,
Okay.
so
We're fortunate that they are community oriented and willing to run those kinds of programs.
Go ahead without.
Okay,
Next one is the field strapping options.
yeah, I just wanted Melissa kind of talk about what's entailed in field striping and one of the considerations for making some changes there, and Jessica chime in too. It's been a long. I don't do the field striping, but I'm capable.
Oh yeah, so field striping currently is a very manual process, right? Creating squared out fields, from just an open grass space is pretty time consuming. I think I've spent the last 3 years teaching new people how to do it every year, right? During flag football and then soccer season. As an example, flag football, I mentioned earlier, we're building 3 fields out at Evers this year, potentially 1 at Bethel. I have to run some numbers to see if it's necessary. At Evers during soccer season, we build 5 fields of varying size, and 3 at the middle school, 1 at Bethel, and hopefully that's enough, right? So squaring out fields is a manual process. You have to what a string and 300-foot measuring tape and walking back and forth and a lot of tools go into that, a lot of brain power, a lot of tools. On top of that, we have the one field striper, right? So you gotta use a lot of, hand spray paint, right? Water-based paint, but we have a manual field striper that goes, once we have it strung out, right? And we have it built to be squared. A manual field striper that you then walk across the line of string with to paint it. Right now with the gopher holes, you did it, it goes like this, right? I was looking down a line the other day. By the other day, I do mean last soccer season, which has been months now, because I referee a lot of these games, when we're short-staffed. And I'm looking down a line, I can't tell, I mean, it's curved, it's an S shape, not a straight line, because the man, first of all, the manual, pusher, and it gets caught on something or. And I think a little bit to do with the person who had lined the parks previously. So I'm looking down and it's really hard to tell if I'm gonna call this ball out of bounds, because technically it's out of bounds, but really it should be in bounds if the line is straight. And so it becomes an issue, right? There are options. I would also like to say that this takes 2 to 3 staff during soccer season, as an example. 4 days, it takes a whole week, 4-hour days. We try to do it in the morning because it's August, and it's 150 degrees outside, especially when I think it's hot outside, getting down in the middle of the parks, right? It's hotter on the parks. So it takes us a good 24 hours for 2 staff, right, combined, sometimes 3, to create these fields. I had to create all 3 fields at the middle school by myself last year, right? And that took 2 days alone, right? Morning, right? Two half days, 1 full day, right? So the manual process of this is really intense. And on top of that, you have to go over these fields. 1 full day is spent by our park staff. Other than like opening parks and doing the regular maintenance and the restroom cleaning stuff. 1 full day is spent, Thursdays are field striping days, right? So they have to go line every field that we have on a weekly basis, just to maintain them during soccer season, right? Once they're gone, we have to redo all of the work again. So if you don't do it weekly, with the sprinklers and it's a water-based paint, you can't put anything else on the parks. It's time consuming. There are options, it's like in the next, number 10, there are options for purchasing a robotic field painter. That does take some time to program this thing, and you have to get some pretty specific, paint, and it's a significant investment. I think the one we're looking at specifically is a leased option. Pulling it up. But it has the turf tank. I think it'll mention there's a little video we're gonna watch for a couple minutes. It has an option for not an option, excuse me. It has a shock system, a shock absorbent system. So when it does go over, and I've watched it happen, when it goes over something, it maintains a straight line, right? Because of the shock system. So. Yeah, so it'll help with some of those straight lines. More importantly, I watched it line a full-size football field from nothing in 15 minutes, right? That's the amount of time it takes me to square up 1 corner, right? Not the whole thing, 1 corner of a football field, right? It did the entire outline of the football field, including the 10-yard marks, no hash marks. We don't use hash marks in flag football anyway, including every 10-yard mark.
This simple but brilliant trick.
We should watch that.
I know, right?
We have we do have a video of the technology that Melissa's talking about. I think we're asking you to kind of watch this and then evaluate whether or not this is something that you want more.
This is the model that we are wanting to lease. Or
It's kind of a lease to own situation.
Yeah,
Yes.
But take a look at this and maybe it relates more to, I think Melissa's point is this relates more to the topic you talked about 15 minutes ago, which is if we spend less time doing field striping, that can be more time doing parks maintenance.
Church Tank One is an autonomous landmarking robot designed to mark all types of sports fields without the need for a man operator.
The TurboTax GPS paint robot enables organizations to save time and money by reducing paint consumption and maximizing labor resources. TurboTax One comes with a smart tab that lets you control the robot by just tapping a few buttons. The dedicated intuitive app is easy to understand and navigate, allowing a quick setup in under 30 seconds. After you launch the route plan, the robot will drive directly to the starting point and begin painting. Because of its autonomous design, TurboTax One eliminates the need for a manual operator, so you can set it up and let it work while you focus on other important tasks. Due to its advanced GPS technology, the robot easily maps the field and draws lines all by itself, and it can get a field ready 7 times faster than any other traditional line marking methods. Getting those lines to be perfectly straight is a real struggle when you try to do it manually. But our intelligent-based stations secure unmatched precision and reliability. With this GPS system, TurboTax One can draw the solid line with an accuracy of plus and minus 1 centimeter every time. It memorizes all its locations and route plans from the initial marking, making over-marking 100% accurate. TurboTax One is equipped with a low-pressure paint pump and nozzle system, which reduces the paint consumption on an average of 50% or more. TurboTax One's hardware and software platforms are designed to perform consistent and accurate line marking on both natural grass and artificial surfaces for all types of athletic sports, including American football, soccer, baseball, and lacrosse. You can choose between 45 different field types and nearly 10,000 options. TurboTax One can make your life as a turf manager easy and can help your organization save time.
Picking up your clip.
Choose the autonomous line marking robot. Choose TurboTax One. Contact our sales team and order your robot today.
So this is actually Melissa's demoed 2 different. Okay, 2 different technologies that both do something similar. This turf tank is one that's in use. The school district has that model as well as in Paso Robles.
Sure.
So there's people who are using this
So
locally.
you've seen it, that.
I've seen it work.
And actually, you had to come out to Everest Park.
Well, that was the other technology. I was not impressed with it. It got stuck. It got stuck.
So, so we have, right, as it stands right now, we have funds put in the next year's budget to begin a lease on this, this piece of equipment. At the time we included it in the budget, I wasn't yet sure if I was solidly recommending proceeding with it for a couple of reasons. I'm not opposed to it, but, and so I wanted to keep it moving forward funding wise, but I have a couple of issues. One, the financial analysis, it probably doesn't save as much money as it costs because of what we pay our current maintenance staff. However, it would free up time to allow for other maintenance activities. In other words, the person can't leave the park, they got stuff to be there, but there's other things they could be doing while the unit's being maintained. So we're gonna get more maintenance hours available, particularly in that fall season when line painting is a big part of the day every single week. And then 2, maybe most importantly is, and I don't have an answer on this yet, is can our team operate this technology? And I know Melissa is confident that she can, and I'm certain she can. But I wanted an answer to that question before I'm ready to say that we can implement it. We struggle with technology in various places in our organization, in embracing technology, and maybe it's probably a better question for Justin. It takes us years to get folks to operate a cell phone, to answer a cell phone. We struggle with certain things, and this is it's not for certain positions, we haven't had the luxury of choosing tech savvy folks over others. We choose we've only had, again, particularly for parks maintenance, really 1 or 2 viable candidates to select from. And so the use of technology hasn't been high up there as far as a minimum standard is concerned. Which is not to say that Kyle can't run this. I just don't know. And Justin, I don't know if you've had a chance to observe the operation or weigh in on this just yet.
Steve, who works for Randy, I believe, was it the school district? They have a similar,
They have the same one.
they have the same one. So they weren't necessarily going to be operating it for some time, some months. But open the door to coming by and checking it out and having conversations about it at least. So our senior operator and our park staff, we're gonna be meeting with Steve and getting at least having a really good Q&A on just the whole thing, userability, those sorts of things.
If that's not gonna happen like in the near term, I can also connect them with Paso schools, because one of our, whatever parents, right, whose kids participate in our programs, works for Paso schools, and he's happy to show us. He likes showing off his new
I mean, I
toys.
think it's promising that we have local entities that
Yes.
are using the same equipment. Cause I mean, assuming we are hiring from the same pool of people, so if these individuals are already kind of implementing and using this technology, I think that's very promising
I do
for
too.
us. And I mean, I agree with you, is the added value in, as this is working, other issues can be addressed at the park that are liabilities, that are of major concerns, and I think that is a major value. I don't know, I tend to shy away from putting policies in based on current people's skill sets, as opposed to encouraging them to rise to the need of our district. So I understand the hesitation, but to me, that sounds more like maybe a training issue and a support issue rather than withholding technology that would be beneficial to our community members and to us as a district overall.
So I have no reservation about, if we had a team of people on site, I would be sure we'd be able to operate this. Like I said, to me, I want to avoid, something that we call an embarrassment, like, okay, we buy this technology, but it's sitting in the closet, we spent, because this is not cheap. This is like $70,000 over 5-6 years. It's not a low cost of entry. That's sitting in the shed, and we're using the manual one because we don't know how to operate it. That's, to me, would be the sort of worst case scenario. I don't want to make our crew less capable than they are, because we're just getting up to speed. We've got a new team, but we're not managing the irrigation clock right now properly. We've had incidents where it's watering when it's raining, or it wasn't watering last year. It's bad. It's very concerning on my part that can we handle we bought a higher tech equipment so that we can do this stuff on our cell phone and these other things. But again, since it's happened, we've turned the whole crew over again. So I don't want to see, I want to be 100% confident that the folks that we have on the field can operate it. I want them to have a say in that before we just say, no, you're expected to learn it. If we had a crew, not one person, but a crew, I'd feel very confident one of those persons would be capable. I want to make sure the person we have at the parks can become capable, because we don't have that.
Is there a concern as it stands today that capability isn't there?
Yes, but that's not to say that it
Is that
can't
a
be there.
training issue, or is that limitation of skill set? I don't know I would just hate to pass up this opportunity that sounds like it would alleviate time, effort, money in the long term based on one person. If we have this turnover problem too, we've now lost an opportunity because we set a policy based on.
Yeah, I just think we have to realize,
We require like a certain amount of training hours with these other facilities that are already using it and say, hey, you need to
Yes.
clock in like
yes, and
2 weeks of whatever training. You need to go through Melissa or Justin to prove your.
we can provide the training.
Okay.
We can have the vendor provide the
Can we
training.
address it without losing this opportunity? Is it something the two supervisors feel?
That's,
that-
well, I'm I'm prepared to recommend it once Justin and Melissa tell me that our crew can, that the folks we have in the field can operate it.
I mean,
Will be capable
I
of
would
operating.
support that, and I would support even more so at the time that we purchase it, even further require an outline training hours or test requirement, or if there's a certification out there, go get it. To be able to operate this thing, and we support the purchase of that based on those requirements to maybe help appease, and that way there's a training system in place. If we end up, heaven forbid, losing who we have,
Right.
you guys already have a training infrastructure in place for future use.
Yeah, the vendor will support it, and I agree with you that this is a technology that I would be more encouraged about pursuing, because we have other local agencies using it. So if we did have turnover, we can send them to work with them to learn how to use it. It's not having to go to somewhere far away or get only over the internet training or something like that. There's a hands-on opportunity to observe and get assistance with right here in our community. So that's a lot of value to that. There's a lot of value to pursuing the same technology as a neighboring agency for that reason. That's why, even though this technology is more expensive than the competing one, that we've stuck with this as we move forward, because we think it's more capable, and because of those local preferences, there's local other agencies using it. But really, it's on Justin to give feedback about we lose the benefit. If we have to send somebody else out there to run this thing, we've lost the benefit of we've lost the benefit of gaining that time.
Local other agencies are using it, can't be that difficult.
Well, like the school district has a much larger facilities crew. So what we have one person.
Right.
So they may have 5 people who do janitor and field maintenance and these other things, and they maybe not all 5 can run it, but 1 or 2 could, and then they'll get by, right? We need 100% of our parks maintenance crew to be able to operate all the key pieces of equipment.
So that's up to Justin to find out.
If we're able to, and that's not taking anything away at all of our current, I don't want you to think, or anyone to think that I don't think our current crew is not capable. I just don't know. And he's new, and we've had some issues that have come up that are quite frankly, they just cannot happen.
But we have individuals that can
I'm certain.
manage and run it as we address this maybe training or skill set issue. And so, I mean, that gives me comfort in knowing that there are people there that.
Yeah, but like I said, but let's
and
just
that
see
have
this in
to
action.
be done.
Feels like this is.
I think it's more embarrassing to have crooked lines and.
It is.
Faded areas, and if this can address that, so that we can address other issues that I have concern from, a legal perspective, then that brings comfort.
Yeah, no, I think it's a unique opportunity to free up some more time and to provide a better quality facility.
Yeah, from the video, at least from what I saw, is that it said that initial setup, maybe, you gotta set it up, but it remembers the field, it remembers things. So maybe initially, obviously, it's gonna be a big learning curve, but then it should hopefully get better, because it will say something about under 30 seconds, you could.
Oh, you just tell it what you're doing, where
Yeah.
go do it.
So, maybe supervisors may need to be involved more initially, the first,
Yeah, I think we're prepared to do that. What I want to make sure is
Yeah. But
trapping is it's a weekly activity. It's not something that's just done periodically.
It seems like the system learns and remembers it.
Who's doing this weekly activity currently? Who's doing the regular,
Our parks maintenance person.
the part makes sense?
Yes, that's.
Actually, and he hasn't really started it yet, because it's only been a couple foul ball lines for softball. So, which is like a straight line and easy. So, well, it's like the easiest thing there is, so. But the actual squaring up of fields and maintaining all of that hasn't started yet. So for his role, he hasn't been here during that time.
But the programming part to use this technology, I would assume it would have to be done by like higher level, like a supervisor or somebody to actually program.
Yeah, it's just entering the
Yeah.
field dimensions, yeah.
And that would be like a one-off
Yep.
Right. Until
Well,
we
once a season,
rebuild
maybe.
the
Once a
effort.
season, sometimes we'll change it, right, to rest certain spaces on the grass or whatever, but.
There
We'll
will be
run
some,
north-south one year, we'll run east-west the next.
the other thing that makes it, it's just, it's not a, no, it's not a, it's not, it's not a significant concern, but we're not just talking about one facility either. This thing would have to be relocated every time we do field striping to our, to probably two other locations. German Park and likely the school site.
Middle school.
So, and it's a big, this is not something you just pick up and put, it's not a, you know, it's not a Roomba. It's gonna have to drive, you have to drive it up a trailer or something like that. I don't use my Roomba either, because I can't figure it out.
Just like.
Have you seen this system? No?
Only on videos.
Yeah, maybe if you take a look at it yourself too, just see how the computer and things like that works too, maybe you feel a little more.
Yeah, well, I think things have become much more intuitive, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's an iPad based kind of technology and, you know, you know, it should be doable, but again, I get involved when people don't use their phone. And that's an infuriating thing. It's like, you know, we just have to recognize that not everybody who works here is comfortable with technology. As we would assume.
But also the bigger picture as a district and community, that technology provides a greater
Benefits.
service and benefit to our constituents. So it's like a balancing of people's comfort levels, but also is this an added value service to our constituents in the long term? Is it cost savings? Is it simplifying some very complicated processes? Like what kind of the pros and cons? And it shouldn't just be solely focused on individuals' inability or adverseness to technology. We have to weigh that with the long list of maybe benefits that it would provide too. I don't want to be closed-minded to things just because, oh, this may be too complicated for so-and-so, but I want to be able to, okay, if it's too complicated, why is it complicated? How do we support this person to rise to the level of what is needed for our community as opposed to vice versa? Because these, you know, our community, we do a disservice if we don't provide the best things that we can for our community.
Yeah, let me restate.
That we can
Again,
afford to.
you will see this item in our proposed budget. So I'm just telling, I wanna overcome a couple of these issues. I wanna, so that we can be 100% confident we can take full advantage of it.
I think a major advantage is it frees that person up from having to do the lines physically to do other stuff. and
Yes,
support what
yes,
needs to be
Absolutely.
done.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, that would be the only reason I would agree to, yeah, otherwise it doesn't make sense. So it's too much money, but if it frees up. But again, still, it sounds like, well, it'd be about what, $12,000 or $15,000 a year or so.
Yeah, the first year was a little higher, but yeah, but it's not a low, it's not a low cost item.
But is it?
So, yeah, I think it's worth further consideration.
You open it after 5 years.
There's-
You can buy it out or get the next technology and keep paying.
Yeah,
They'll update the machine, right? So we can just get a new machine if we want to maintain the lease.
So what we've started with, or what we've proposed initially is entering into the lease agreement. And then maybe after this first cycle, we decide this is something that we want to permanently own, or is it worth maintaining? Even owning it doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna work for us for 40 years, you have to replace pieces and stuff, so.
Do they manage the maintenance within the league?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a warranty on replaceable parts. I have to,
So we gotta get going.
okay.
So you have to be flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can bring it all to the
Okay.
budget meeting too. Sorry.
All right, so let's go ahead and do the next item. You know, we should try to wrap it up in the next 15,
Certainly,
20 minutes.
thank you
if
for
we can.
your patience. Just wanted to address a couple of items on this, on the other cap. We just talked about the robotic field painter, so maybe we can go to the other two.
Yeah.
And actually, Justin spoke a little bit about the, this one here. I can't read from that far away. Justin spoke a little bit about, why don't I bring up the current tractor first?
See at the bottom, there's pictures.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So go all the way over, and then you see at the bottom,
Yep.
shows the pictures, and
Is that it?
those last three are the current ones.
Oh,
the current
okay.
tractor.
So this is the piece of, Justin, this is the piece of equipment we currently own. This picture's taken out of the wastewater plant. And this, we are proposing to replace this equipment on the utility side. I don't want to get into that too much with this committee, but it's something that's larger and more capable for our utility operation. When that happens, that piece of that replacement equipment, if it's approved, will no longer be suitable for use at the parks. But Justin, maybe you could address just some of the challenges we're having with this. And why even if we bought something new, this is no longer suitable at parks like it had been historically.
So earlier last week, we were in the back area of Evers, towards the north of Evers, there's kind of a swale area that fenced off, and we lost 4-wheel drive in the axle. One of our operators did some tack welding on it to try and keep things use it temporarily, even though we don't have 4-wheel drive right now. The next, I want to say later last week, the fire department went to go use it out and around their training grounds, and the serpentine belt blew on it. It built the month before, it fell apart the month before. The bucket, so the arms, you can't really tell because it's laying flat, I guess, right now, but the bucket is hydraulics, and it's used probably, it's been picked up too many times, picked up heavy loads too many times. So the bucket is kind of
Wonky.
a little wonky. And the attachments that you will see are that's our aerator. That's the aerator that Mark was using potentially, and it was operating, really good from that 98 to whatever he left. He was able to use it, but it's in disrepair now. It doesn't work any longer. So the pictures on to the left are just other, that's another photo of the existing. This particular tractor, I don't know that it was purchased. I don't know how necessarily it was purchased in the past, but this tractor has been used for both utilities and for parks. And so but it is certainly not a user friendly for somebody that was new coming on to, if you're not an equipment operator, which that's really kind of like a specialized sort of field. This doesn't lend to userability. It doesn't have a hydrostatic transmission. So that's basically like an automatic, put it in you're going forward or you're going in reverse or you're in neutral sort of thing right off the bat. So
It's 25 years old. This is 25 years old.
it is.
It's just
Been used wide array. We've certainly got a lot of use out of it, right? I mean, we've used it everywhere in everything that we do. And so
the concept is this tractor goes away, something else replaces it on the utility side, which would leave really nothing to be used in the parks, because the proposed utility tractors much too large and heavy, would damage turf, etc., and be really probably larger than what we would use. So the proposal is to include in the budget a smaller piece of equipment that is more designed for turf application. And to Justin, this, I can't remember what we have, 40,000. I should have brought that.
47,000.
And that would also include the aerator and
All the attachments. The aerator was a expensive attachment. I hadn't priced those in some time, and so that's a pretty expensive attachment. But the tractor itself, you could think of as being around $25,000, and then it's just you're adding these other a mower attachment to it, and an aerator and other.
here's a drag mower, and then spray.
Yeah, you can do a lot of,
That'd be good.
So this isn't, we're not, this item wasn't to specify this brand or this model or anything like that, but something that's small, maneuverable, trailerable, and can perform those functions that we have lost due to wear and tear of the existing equipment, and would permanently lose if that John Deere tractor were to be sold.
So since each facility would essentially have their own piece of equipment, then the wear and tear would be a lot less significant.
Well, I think what we're doing is we're taking one piece of equipment and we're working it too hard in some locations And then it's too big. Sort of the one size fits all is not ideal for either. So this would be a piece of equipment that's designed for turf. And to be run on turf and do things like aeration and then of course, there's just other sort of general, like Justin was proposing to have the Parks Rec would still have a bucket, so you can bring out soil without having to drive in a pickup truck or something like that, bring them out to the fields to fill gopher holes or to level out low spots, those kinds of things. So again, it wouldn't necessarily be this piece of equipment, but something along those lines. So we wanted to just inform the committee about that, about why that need existed and that there is an item in the budget for it that's pending.
It comfortably fits in our budget where we're comfortable with.
Yeah, and internally, we kind of talked about this as being the highest priority piece of equipment in the parks budget.
I was gonna say probably more than the painting, striping, right?
100%. This is the tools necessary to actually do the job.
I would say I'd rather have this than the. We have to choose,
I don't know that it has to be mutually exclusive,
but yeah.
And then the seal coat issue is really, it's a preventative maintenance item. Really, had we not had the work planned at Evers Park, you'd see that listed here. It's been like 7 or 8 years since we've done a new seal coating at German Park or at the community center. And this would involve, crack filling, seal coat, and then restriping the lines. And it's just if you fail to do that too long, then you start to lose the pavement, then it becomes more expensive to repair down the road.
I think it typically includes curb replacement for the parking curbs as well, if any of them have become cracked, right, the curb stops. So there's a couple that are cracked, I think, at the community center. So they're not too expensive, it's just a piece of concrete with some rebar in it, but it would also include that at community center parking lot and German Park.
Okay. Any questions on that item? Okay, next item, summer recreation programs.
All right, I can breeze through this, guys.
Yeah.
We got kids, going lunch. I'm gonna do 30 seconds or less. Concerts in the Park starts June 14th. Very exciting. We have flag football starting literally that Friday also, the June 16th. The Saturday after that is the beer run with the Rec Foundation. Very exciting. Rec Foundation taking the lead on the beer run this year. Very excited for that. We have skate camp, scoot camp, track and field camp, one summer soccer camp and a preschool camp all coming up between June, July, and August. Unofficial start date for soccer is August 5th for the assessment period at Evers. And then basically school starts on the 22nd and it's might as well be December. Done.
Well, amazing work on the website. Reader friendly and it's.
Soccer has a new website for registration. It's very exciting. We can put all of our information for other sports on there as well. So we're gonna be linking that to this, continue to link that to the CSD website. It is very exciting. It's actually a free service that's provided through our affiliation with Cal South, is going to benefit the other sports that we operate. So it's really, really excited for that.
All right, so future agenda items. So you were gonna bring back, let's see, obviously with the IWMA and state update.
Yeah,
to bring that.
is there a specific, I guess on the issue of the solid waste, does the committee, if you would like to see, if you'd like to review that before it goes to the board, this is the issue of the assignment provisions. I'll just calendar that. I'll tell you what, does this work? If we can get it scheduled before we need to do it, I'll hold a committee meeting for that item. And we can obviously have other items on that too.
Gives us an opportunity to dive in deeper than maybe at the board level, we'd be able to.
Just ask questions and spend more time on it. Yeah, and it's again, because the counties, it's gonna have to, I know we're gonna be able to move faster than that. So I think we'll be able to accommodate that.
Okay, all right, and then obviously the trees at Evers Park, you were gonna get back to us on.
Yeah, we'll develop a specific plan for that.
Evers Parks improvement plans, you're just going to.
We'll keep updating on that.
Yeah, we're done with that, and then parks conditions, yeah, so like a status update, like maybe in about a month and a half or so, how things are going. That would be nice. just,
Yeah.
and then, the field striping options.
Well, we're gonna know if that
Yeah.
gets through the budget.
Yeah,
whether-
exactly.
We'll know by then whether or not it's something.
I think that's it.
we want to proceed with.
Is there anything else?
Yeah, any other new, you
No,
know,
just real quick question. So for the three proposed items for the budget, is it feasible within do we have funds to cover
Yes.
all three in the budget? Okay.
Any other items you guys want to see? Everything is good. Yeah, we're good. Okay, we're good. All right. Thank you. Everything's good. Meeting adjourned. Awesome. Thank you.
thank you, thanks for